Somewhere beyond the recesses of time and space, two podcasters are set adrift in a machine, picking up transmissions of movies that are forgotten but not gone.
Welcome to Movie Memory Machine, the only podcast about forgotten movies whose ship goes down with the captain. I am your host, Landen Solano, joined always by my co-host, Truman Caps. Truman, it's good to see you.
No time for pleasantries, Landon. My sensors are showing that there's two unknown life forms aboard the movie memory machine with us. So I've taken the liberty of MacGyvering together a couple of flamethrowers for us, and I figure we can just start hunting through the vents and find wherever these aliens are.
Fantastic. Yes. And the machine display here is telling me that I have to do this in my best announcer voice. So it's good to see our two guests transported here from sunny California. We have Lauren Pritchard, actor, writer, comedian from Mad TV, 5 Disney Channel shows. Which ones? There's no way to tell. HBO's True Blood, Dropout TV's Make Some Noise, and Joe Roche, writer, director, and comedian of Planet Dune, The Thundermans, telenovela, and Kill Me Deadly. Check your local listings where you can catch their most recent film, Attack of Meth Gator. We'll talk about that in just a second. Assuming that's your most recent, I know you write a lot of movies, so by the time we record this and when it comes out, you might have 2 more movies out.
It's true.
Lauren, Joe, welcome.
It's entirely possible.
Thank you for having us. We're super fans of you as people and of the podcast.
Big time.
That's so sweet of you. I'm going to put down the flamethrower because I'm getting the sense that it's a very different vibe than what I expected earlier.
Thank you.
And I've got hairspray in, so please.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, okay, good. Hey, we just saved ourselves from instigating some kind of horrible disaster that might upend the machine and we'd have to climb out of it.
Now, I mean, don't put the flamethrowers away just yet. We have to check whether or not they brought the meth gator with them.
Yeah. You have to declare that at customs, right?
We sure do. I'm from Florida, so there's a little bit of meth gator in me, probably. And we do have some meth gator costumes in our closet that are pretty accurate. But besides that, we're good.
Fantastic. We're so glad to have you here today. And I think we've got the perfect film for the two of you to discuss with us. Today, the machine has made us watch Poseidon, the remake, the readaptation, the reimagining from 2006. And, y'all aren't that unfamiliar with disaster films. So I have a question here for you to get us started. Are disaster films basically slasher films where the killer is Mother Nature?
Ooh.
Whoa.
Well, if you follow like the Save the Cat Snyder version, it's like Monster in the House versus Nature versus Man. This is Nature versus Man, which is the best because we are completely helpless and you can't outsmart it. You just have to like be brave. So Monster in the House would be like Jaws, as this is more like Twister. So like you can only do what you can do, but mankind is very small. So I love it because it's like you have to use your wits, but you can't outsmart it. So it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite genres to do.
Same. It's too big. It's too big to get your arms around. It's not Michael Myers. This thing's all around you.
Yeah.
Your enemy is the Earth. You can't escape that. And if you go to space, there's even more awful stuff out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes it's the moon.
Well, I have a friend who one time said, "Oh, I'm not afraid of Jason Voorhees because I'm just never gonna go to Crystal Lake. That's easy. That's so easy." But like Earthquake, it's like wow, or Armageddon. You're like, but just don't go to that one lake.
Yeah.
Have sex.
But Jason Voorhees went to Manhattan and he went to space. He does travel a little bit.
Oh yeah, the guy definitely is logging some miles.
Yeah, once he got his like passport and some ID, like he did really great.
Yeah. And Leprechaun, he travels more than anyone. I mean, he's been to the hood at least twice.
Yeah. I mean, that's if the Leprechaun is like in the suburbs, that's not as big of a commute. I mean, he's on the freeway for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20 depending on traffic. Space is the bigger trip for him.
Yeah. And he's little. He gets under like the subway stuff. He's little. He gets through stuff quick.
Yes.
Fits in the carry-on container on the plane. The Leprechaun is very travel ready.
He's the what's the when kids travel alone? He's like when a kid travels alone, he's got the little thing on his unaccompanied minor.
Yes.
He's unaccompanied leprechaun when he travels.
The movie Unaccompanied Minors could have been improved if the leprechaun was in it, just killing all those kids who were alone on Christmas.
And they just never talk about it. He's just there.
Yeah.
And then every scene, like a kid's missing.
It sounds like something AI can help us with. All right, well, we are going to get into the discussion of this, but before we do, let's bring folks on board with what happens in this movie. Truman, can you give us the onboard safety synopsis of this film?
Yes, I would be absolutely glad to, but I won't be able to do it with the same verve as the improv performers on a cruise ship would, so bear with me. It's New Year's Eve, and the luxury ocean liner RMS Poseidon is making a transatlantic journey. Revelers aboard the ship include former firefighter and New York City Mayor Robert Ramsey, played by Kurt Russell, his daughter Jennifer, played by Emily Rossum, and her boyfriend Christian, played by Mike Vogel. Former Navy submarine captain turned professional gambler Dylan Johns, played by Josh Lucas, is there too, flirting with single mom Maggie James, played by Jacinda Barrett, and making nice with her son Connor, played by Jimmy Bennett. Architect Richard Nelson, played by Richard Dreyfuss, has just been left by his husband and is contemplating suicide, while stowaway Elena Morales, played by Mia Maestro, is trying to make it to New York to see her sick brother. But when a massive rogue wave capsizes the Poseidon, this ragtag group of survivors must navigate harrowing obstacles to try and escape the upside-down ship before it sinks beneath the waves for good.
Oh my god, that synopsis was almost as long as this movie.
Well, you know,
Which is not very long.
I cut a number of subplots out of my synopsis.
Oh, got it. Okay.
When studying the movie, I did learn it was over 2 hours in its original length.
Yeah.
And they cut it down to 95 minutes, which explains so much.
It explains the fact that Fergie has no lines. Looks like she's
like,
about to say a line before she is sunk, and instead is just buries her face in the nook of Andre Brower's neck.
It's
inexplicably.
You know, not many movies give you the opportunity to watch Fergie die. So, you know, it's a landmark film in that regard.
Tonight's gonna be a good night. My lovely lady lumps. Check it out.
They should be flotation devices. She would have been fine with those lady lumps.
See, she would have floated up.
Yeah.
Just saying. Fergie.
All right.
Tonight was not a good night.
This movie was directed by Wolfgang Petersen, which this isn't on record anywhere, but I just want to say it's the third in his trilogy of "Oops, a Boat Happened" movies, with Das Boot, Perfect Storm, and this movie here today.
Das Boot and The Perfect Storm. Movies that I cried.
Oh.
I wept. I went alone, and I saw Das Boot in Seattle in the 90s, and I clutched my pearls. It was beautiful because I was like, we're the bad guys. Oh, we're the bad guys.
Yeah.
We're hiding from us. And the claustrophobia and the joy and the camaraderie, or whatever they call it in German. the Ich liebe dich, mein Knabs. And then Perfect Storm, like the sacrifice. And then this.
And then this. And then this. Are you sure you were...
If you liked Das Boot, you'll love it.
What if the people on the Das Boot were just trying to have a good time? No, there were.
Are you sure you were crying during Das Boot and not like sweating through your face? Because that, I think, might be just like this has a Guinness Book World Record. Das Boot might be Guinness Book World Record for sweatiest movie that's ever existed.
Sweatiest movie. And also, like, I think the crab lice powder got in my eyes.
Oh.
Because that crab lice powder scene, I was like, oh, I can smell it. It's probably minty and mentholy.
Smells like your grandpa.
Well,
I assure you it is. Oh, TMI.
Grandpa was on a sub.
That's interesting. That's the worst thing about your grandpa is the crab lice, and not that he was in the German military during World War II.
We do not talk about Grandpa. We have ways of making that not happen.
Oh, let's talk a little bit about where this film falls in film history.
Yes, a rarefied position in film history. Poseidon,
this is
2006.
the thing. This is the thing about any film that exists. It exists in history, whether or not it makes an impact.
This is
it's
true.
what we're here to talk about.
I guess that's true.
So this was released on May May 12th, 2006, by Warner Brothers Studios. And we usually like to have Truman guess how many theaters this was in. Do you all want to venture a guess how many theaters this opened to on its opening weekend?
I'm going to say all of them. Sorry, Truman.
No, I was giving the floor to you guys. A guest start, please.
It's not an incorrect answer.
It's coming at the tail end of like Dante's Peak, Armageddon. It's during that beautiful 96 through 2006. It was just like, oh, the disaster films. Remember 9/11? We're gonna bank on that. Like they just like shot terror and trauma at our face holes, and we're like,
yeah, they were like,
I love it.
If we're gonna remake one of them, let's not do Towering Inferno after 9/11. Let's do the boat one.
Yeah. We let Nicolas Cage do the literal 9/11 movie, and then we'll do the boat one.
That's right.
That's what Al Qaeda really took from us, was the ability to get an airplane remake ever made.
Oh.
And Towering Inferno was so beautiful. The outdoor elevators. Oh, the Burbank elevators. There's a fire up here. Oh,
yep.
To your point, Lauren, like this is I think the original disaster film craze was the beginning of those 4-quadrant blockbusters, because you have old timers coming in for small parts, not even small parts at times, and then you've got up and comers filling out some of the cast. The Beyond Poseidon Adventure really highlights that one to me, where you've got Sally Field with Michael Caine and Telly Savalas from TV bringing people in, and then Slim Pickens is there.
They're just like, who do we get? Well, and also like that 70s, the people who loved it in the 70s as teenagers are now in their 60s or whatever, loving it again in 2006. So they're just loving it, or not teenagers, but they were like adults, and then loving it again with their kids. So it takes both generations back, and it brought us all back to that.
And it's something that I think is interesting, looking back at the disaster films of the 70s, and specifically Towering Inferno, which admittedly, I haven't seen the Towering Inferno. I think it's nuts that year the Towering Inferno was nominated for Best Picture up against Chinatown, The Conversation, and The Godfather Part 2.
Well, and like, not to go too deep into Poseidon, again, pun, Shelley Winters winning the Oscar for it because she's like, I'll do my stunts, is a huge deal, because there had been nothing like that at the time, especially for like a plus-size older lady. By the way, she was 2 years younger than our lead gentleman, so it's like whatever. But like, she did her own stunts, but she got her an Oscar. So the idea of someone winning an Oscar for a disaster film didn't happen again until Titanic, right?
Yeah.
You didn't think Josh Lucas deserved at least a nomination for this?
Well,
I think he hoped deep down in his heart.
Josh Lucas every day wins the award for "I'm not Matthew McConaughey, but you think I am." From Sweet Home Alabama, because Sweet Home Alabama, they pitched it to McConaughey, and he didn't do it, and they're like, "There's this guy that looks like him. Can we just get this guy?" And then he just kind of passed for like 15 years as McConaughey.
Lauren, you've stumbled into a thing on our podcast which I call Above Ground Swimming Pool Matthew McConaughey.
100%, because you're like, I think, and in our minds, we just Berenstein Bears him to be McConaughey in the film. Like, I just go like, that is the same guy.
Yeah. Josh Lucas has his utility. Like, I think there have been a lot of films where he's been well utilized, but generally speaking, he kind of has like, I'm gonna marry you so that I can kill you and take your inheritance vibes to me, which works in movies like Session 9 or whatever that Disney football movie was.
Yeah, Josh Lucas and Matthew McConaughey did to me what I just told Joe recently of Edie Falco and the chick from Desperate Housewives are not the same person, but in my mind they have just been for 20 years. And then one day I was like, they're not the same person? So Frasier's wife is not the woman from Sopranos? Wait.
Oh, that would be amazing though if Frasier's wife was played by Edie Falco. Oh,
that would be great. It would change the whole not wife, but like long-term girlfriend. But like, I just conflated them to be the same person. I don't know.
Well, this film, with all of those stars, with all the audiences they were trying to reach, and they were trying to reach them by releasing this into 3,555 theaters. I think that is the most theaters we've run into on any of the movies we've covered so far.
Wow.
Okay, question though. I thought there was like a hard upper, like we've done other big movies.
We have.
And yet
Yeah.
this was even more. So were they showing this at like repertory theaters, like theaters that only show Rocky Horror for like one night?
They were
showing Poseidon.
They were hanging up curtains outside of schools and displaying it against the wall and counting that. Lauren was right when she said all of them.
All of them. They were all in,
Kids love
like the
those.
water in the main hall. They were all in, like the deaths in the water.
Well, with it in that many theaters, would you believe it doesn't even reach number 1 in the box office? That sucks.
Wow.
Yes, I 100% believe it. No one told their friends to go back
Yeah.
and see it.
Yeah, this comes out at number 2 in its opening weekend, just behind Mission Impossible 3.
Oh, hey,
But-
give it up for Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Oh,
though.
boy.
Huh? Yeah.
It comes in just above RV, starring Robin Williams.
R.I.P. buddy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I get to work with. I did a show.
That's right. Yeah.
Crazy
we see
Ones, yeah.
Crazy Ones. That's it. Yeah.
You were very good in Crazy Ones. Hi, I'm your husband.
Hi, thank you, Joe. Stay in your hole. No,
You're not sleeping on the couch tonight, Joe. Well done.
we probably are. We'll just pass out there.
Both of us.
Just to round out the top 5 of this weekend, coming in at number 4 is Just My Luck, and in number 5 is An American Haunting.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
An American
What-
Haunting
what
in
a-
London.
What a weekend in May that was in 2006.
Those ghosts were free.
Remember, we go to the pictures to see movies. Remember that time? We bought popcorn, parked our cars, and we went indoors with others. Oh, what a time we had.
They didn't have fancy
just-
stuff on top of the buckets. It was just a normal bucket of popcorn. No promotional tie-ins.
Ooh, that's a good question, though. What would be the promotional popcorn bucket tie-in for this movie?
It would be the ship, but it'd be served upside down. You have to open the hatch to get the popcorn out of the bottom of the
Perfect.
bucket.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a hatch on top of the popcorn bucket. You open it, and a
Yes.
torrent of butter, just liquid butter, hits you in the face.
Yes.
I'd buy it.
Oh my. Well, despite this coming in at number 2 in the opening weekend, it stayed in theaters for 13 weeks. And it stayed in the top 10 box office for 5 of those weeks. But on a $160 million budget, which is pretty dang big for 2006, that's
a lot of
I'd
money.
say at least upwards of $200 million in 2025 dollars. It only grossed domestically $60.7 million.
Ooh.
And but give it to the international box office, bringing in 122.8 million to bring it just above 182.5. So, counting in
Disaster.
marketing costs, yeah, that. So,
Yeah, Warner Brothers' budget was sinking and flipping over and going underneath the waves and exploding.
By the way, there was a moment going into this film, knowing and loving the original, and that it has that iconic Oscar-nominated song, "The Morning After." I was thinking, is this film gonna have a tie-in song? If it is, in 2006, who's it gonna be? My thought, I didn't know Fergie was in this before I watched it. My thought was
a true jump scare, her showing up.
my thought was, if it's gonna have a song, it's gonna be Fall Out Boy. And then my mind immediately jumped to "Sugar, We're Going Down Sinking." But
I love that. I also love the idea they're like, we're all in on Fergie. She will never be out of fashion. That was half of our budget, was getting Fergie on that one day.
who knew being in Poseidon would be she'd be less underwater in that than when she sang the national anthem at the NBA.
Tuesday.
Okay, where was this movie on your radar when it came out in 2006? Have you seen this before? Give me your experiences. Let's go around to the table. Joe, let's start with you.
It was completely not on my radar. I was always... it was like a blind spot where if there's a remake, I would just tune it out.
Yeah.
I would just be like, you're not going to remake this, so it doesn't exist. So I was in deep denial and moved on with my life.
Healthy.
Very good. Lauren?
I saw it in theaters.
What?
Here's why. I
Okay.
was seeing lots of movies at the time. I was very single and seeing lots of movies. 2, I loved the 1972 version.
Yes.
And I saw the 2005 version on TV because when I moved to LA, one of the first shows I did was at an improv show, Theater Sports. We did a parody of the 1970s disaster films. So we really studied those beats really well. And then I joined Comedy Sports, where I met Jordan Crane, a few years later. And my first show of Comedy Sports was on the set of Poseidon Adventure, the musical, which was happening in LA in 2002. So please YouTube a clip of 2002, the Poseidon Adventure musical that happened in LA. So just picture like Rocky Horror or like Little Shop or Reefer Madness or any of your favorite parody musicals. They were doing the Poseidon Adventure musical on the current UCB stage now, but back then it was just a theater.
Wow.
And they had the whole upside down set. So my first improv show I did in LA with Comedy Sports was on this upside down Poseidon Adventure set, and I was like, I love this.
Oh my God.
But I loved the Poseidon Adventure because they hit those tropes so clearly and solidly. Like they hit like the beat.
Oh yeah.
Just like Airplane, just like Towering Inferno, they hit those beats. And I have a place of love because Earthquake scarred me as a child. Earthquake was a big deal to me.
The movie or the
changed,
attraction at Universal?
or the stand-up
Both?
comedian.
But I lived in Florida at the time. I didn't know the attraction, but the movie kept me out of elevators. I'm not kidding, for 10 years. As a kid, I wouldn't go to elevators. I made my dad walk me upstairs because I was so terrified by that movie, so much so. So
Good cardio,
I
at
just
least.
fell in love with disaster films at that time.
Lauren, I feel like you have been preparing for your entire life to come on our dumb podcast and talk about this movie.
I was so excited, A, to hear from you both, but B, to talk about something I care deeply about. I love a solid genre. I do. I love it. And to write movies with my husband now that are in this genre is everything.
Do you think that we're due for another remake of Poseidon? Would you guys take a crack at it?
Well, I think the twist, I don't know about you, Joe, but I think the twist I would do now is like make it during like a hurricane. Like make it too soon. Like make it like because of global warming and because of hurricanes and we can't, and also these super ships, because they have these ships that are like giving the middle finger to nature now. Like they built the largest ship that's ever existed this year and it's launching and it is bigger than any building we have on land.
And the
So it's
conflict
like,
is
what-
half of them have COVID.
And the
Yes,
other half have
all the time.
norovirus, so...
And I worked on a cruise ship. I opened the Disney Wonder. So I got to live on a cruise ship while it was being built, and they are precarious at best. They are put together with spit and wire and duct tape.
Ooh.
They are built with low union standards and
But they sure are fun.
they're sure fun. But they are built with the lowest standards they can get away with financially. And I got to live on a ship, and it was beautiful. But it was also like, you're like, oh, we are lucky to live every day on the ship for 7 months, because those watertight doors will cut you in half. They don't
Ooh.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also have a Disney cruise experience, but maybe I'll save that for a little bit later. Truman.
I was aware that this movie was out there in the world. I certainly did not see it. I was also familiar with the original Poseidon Adventure, although I did not see it until I was prepping for this. The biggest thing I remember is that I think some kind of reality show, I hope it wasn't The Apprentice, but I remember seeing promos for it where there was some challenge where it was doing some kind of promotional tie-in event for Poseidon, and all I remember is just like cuts to different contestants on the thing saying Poseidon in a deep voice. I mean, I didn't even watch the full episode.
Would it have been the Fear Factor? I mean, not that would be any better than The Apprentice. but-
Which shitty 2024 person was involved? Was it the guy from The Apprentice or the guy who hosted Fear Factor? Which way, Western
One
man?
of the same. Well, I feel like the Fear Factor when they did make them go underwater and hold their breath a lot, which just seemed
That would make sense.
that might have been it.
Not for me.
It was important TV. It was very important.
They
that
called
did
the
that.
Golden Age.
Move the dialogue forward. Okay.
But Landon, what about
Yeah.
you? You asked us. We didn't ask you. What's your experience?
I had not seen this before, and it did kind of become white noise to me. I think because it came out during this time where so many of the big blockbuster posters were just kind of this weird, dark, faded blue. Like, even the Poltergeist poster that we've already covered, it's just kind of like something's kind of happening in there, and then it's just the title somewhat askew. So, I don't know, it just kind of washed over me, no pun intended. I always intend puns.
I think you intended that shit.
I did. You got me. Yeah, I don't know. It was like, I had just moved to LA, or I was just about to move to LA as well, so I was in a weird place where, oddly enough, on this show, I feel like, Lauren, during the time I was single, from like 2000 to 2003, I had seen every single movie in theaters. This was a very rare time in my life where like I was actually busy with doing something, getting ready to move to LA, doing some acting and stuff like that, and just it did not make a mark on my radar at all. And I think, as much as I loved the 1970s disaster films, I think I was also feeling a little disaster film fatigue by 2006.
There'd been a lot of them.
I was probably like, nah, not today, Hollywood. I'm not gonna fall for your ruse. But I am glad that I got to watch it for this. So, I likewise, I think, big statement here, I think the 1972 Poseidon Adventure is maybe the best disaster film there is. The Irwin Allen did all of these disaster film. I know I brought this up to my dad the other day because I'm like, I wanted to get a little like firsthand perspective of, did you go see these in the theaters? What was happening in the zeitgeist? Was it in conversation? I'm like, tell me about the disaster film craze. He's like, craze?
He's like, son, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We had problems back then. There was inflation in Vietnam.
We were coming off real big things, man. We were making you kids.
Yeah. Well, so apparently the disaster films did not register to him at all in the 70s. But they were popular. They made a lot of money. They were nominated for a lot of Oscars. In fact, one little bit of trivia I found was Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, the sequel in 1979, was like the second to last of the disaster films and the first through the whole decade to not get one single Academy Award nomination. So all of the glut of them from the early 1970s, every single one was nominated for something.
At Poseidon, this one was nominated for an Academy Award, so it continues the run.
That's true.
For VFX?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the wave scene alone was epic.
Yeah, that opening pan all around the CGI ship. I don't know if you guys watched the production featurettes, but they just filmed Josh Lucas at the Sepulveda Dam jogging around in front of a bunch of green screens, and then they transposed him onto the CGI model of the ship, which is, I mean, now a kid could do that on their phone, but in 2006, that's pretty impressive.
Man,
I remember
that was what's in the this movie's in the Guinness Book of World Records for, is the most detailed, accurate, or authentic detail to a ship at the time. Went to this, and it took it away, I think, from Titanic. So,
wow.
I was gonna say that Captain, when they pulled back from the captain, then do the thing.
Yeah.
It had a very Titanic where you're like, oh, it goes from the real actor to a CGI thing and around. Mm-hmm. But it was so, the way the waves hit, the way that the ship is acting is very authentic and very cool, which I think really adds a really creepy too soon factor to the actual disaster, which is great. Because, again, the 72 version is practical, which is awesome, and they do most of their own stunts, which is amazing.
Yes.
But you can see, like, it's a little schlocky, whereas the CGI is like, the death is like, ugh.
Yeah. Kurt Russell in particular, but we'll get there in due time.
Yeah. Okay, I have a bomb that I kind of need to drop in the middle of this podcast.
Sorry, Truman, that's the 2005 version, made for TV version.
You have a rogue wave.
Do you mean a fireball? Do you mean a fireball into the main ballroom full of water?
I have a waterfall of flaming gasoline that I need to spill into the middle. I have an unexpected Fergie performance that I need to make in the middle.
Oh no!
Let's keep moving it.
Bridge too far.
So I watched the Poseidon Adventure to prepare for this, and I have to say, I think that this version is better than the Poseidon Adventure because I really don't like the Poseidon Adventure. I thought it was one of the most boring movies I've ever watched. I am so sorry. I didn't realize all of you loved it so much. It felt way cooler in my head when I was formulating all these notes.
Truman, don't.
What is your address in NoHo? Where are you
I'm
right
definitely
now?
just wherever the minion can see. That's where I live.
Don't introduce conflict when I have two other people that we can pick from for co-hosts.
I like that you made the minion like the Lion King. As far as the minion can see, he owns that land.
The minion protects me, and listeners who aren't familiar with the San Fernando Valley will not find this funny. Anyway, admittedly, in the Poseidon Adventure's defense, I watched it on a plane, on my phone, so maybe it's sort of a big screen experience that you need. But also, watching the movie, there were a few times where I kind of felt like I needed to pull out the in-flight safety manual and browse through it just to, like, keep myself awake. Because the pacing of that movie is so slow. Every scene, Gene Hackman will lead the survivors into a room, a fucked up upside-down room, and he immediately points to the thing they need to get to, and then Ernest Borgnine yells at him for 15 minutes. All the women...
So loud in every scene.
So loud, so sweaty. A lot of sweat, not as much sweat as Das Boot, but still a fair amount.
Yes.
They didn't have powder in the 70s.
No, the crabs were running wild.
It wasn't invented yet.
But all the other survivors, are just kind of like flailing around and sobbing or whatever, and it's just like a series of escape rooms with the dumbest people in the world, and it's all happening so slowly that there's no sense of urgency or stakes, and I often forget that the ship is sinking. So I think that this movie has its faults, which we can discuss, but I personally think it improves on the source material. I give myself to you for abuse.
Well, I have to say, what you hated about it is what I love about it
Likewise.
versus our current 2006.
Yeah.
They take time to get to know the characters, so you care about them when they start drowning.
Yeah.
I didn't care if anyone drowned in this movie because I didn't know anything about them, and they all were kind of jerks.
Yeah.
Like, no one saved the cat, really. Actually, at one point, they kill a cat.
Oh.
There was never a chance to get to know and love them before the wave hit. So I was like, I don't know what does he do and why is he a mayor?
But he's a gambler. He's a gambler.
And I was like, I'm a firefighter and also a mayor and also I'm a school swim hero. I was like, okay,
I have amazing handwriting.
I have a lot of puritanical ideas about my daughter having sex.
Yes, weirdly so.
Yeah.
And it felt very rushed. Which makes sense when I heard that it was edited down.
Yeah.
So I was like, it seems so manic and rushed. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Whereas the other one was slow, but when something did happen, you're like, because you got to know those people, they rested. They would like rest between disasters. This was like, gah, gah, gah. So you never got to know why it matters if they live or die, including Richard Dreyfuss, who wanted to die the whole time.
Oh, man.
Oof.
I can't wait to talk about
the
wave hitting. No, but I always want to add, Lauren, to you, like, the thing that I really like about the original is that nobody's an expert at anything. I mean, no one's really an expert here, but, like, they're just, like, people thrown into extreme circumstance. Truman wants to interject to contradict me.
I'm just saying, for a fucking preacher, Gene Hackman seems to know a lot about boats. He's like an expert shipsman, if that's what you call it, by the end of the movie. And I'm like, do they teach this in God
his
school?
hand, Truman.
And then Richard Dreyfuss is an architect, but never talks about it again.
Yeah.
Never comes up.
He has one really important bit of information he has to divulge to get people to go on this weird journey away from the captain of the ship.
Yes.
And that piece of information is that he's gay, and the movie is quite progressive for doing that.
Which I did not pick
gay.
up till my second watch of this.
The earring didn't tip you off, dog?
I mean, Morgan Freeman wears an earring. I don't know. I didn't judge him for it. It's
different.
It is 2006 shoehorned in hard, so to speak. And yeah, at one point he's like, boats aren't supposed to stay afloat upside down, and then that's it.
Yep, yeah.
Also, I don't think I don't think you need to go to architecture school to know that a boat shouldn't be upside down. I'm sorry.
Although
fair point.
Yes, though it does give one of my favorite lines of the movie, which is about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes after the disaster happens and they're all gathered together. One of I think it's Elena, asks him, how bad is it? And he just says, it's very bad. Which, I don't know.
Thank you, Elena.
It was...
Pour one out.
a poorly written exchange when you look at it on paper, but Richard Dreyfuss, I don't know, delivers it with a certain not cutting through the bullshit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. That I kind of appreciated.
He should.
I'm so glad they didn't go no bueno, because they could have. They could have.
I would have rather he just said, "We're gonna need a bigger boat that's right side up,"
and then for no reason there's a shark and he dies.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, again, if you guys do the new Poseidon remake, get some fucking sharks in there. Have there be a shark swimming around.
Right? Do you remember one of my favorite dumb scary movies is the what's the one where it's the ice storm is chasing? It's the Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh God. But it's
That's
like
it. It's
Yeah,
day
you got
after
it.
Day After
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Ding, ding,
It's
ding.
like already the whole world is ending because it's gonna be ice.
Yeah.
But also there's wolves. Like
Wolves.
wolves are chasing them.
Wolves that
And it's like-
float.
Yeah,
That was like
but you're like-
really poor CGI, and like I could tell like they didn't have the texture of their feet touching the ground, and
Yes.
it just looked like they kind
Yeah, they
of
just
hovered over the ice.
That's my favorite. We could tell that.
It's a good title for a coming of age, wolves that float. Anyway.
That's my favorite. We could tell that there was a creative team person who was like, wait, there needs to be more here. Because it's like they're already running from their life and death. Ice is chasing them, and also wolves is the equivalent of the Titanic is sinking. The Titanic is sinking, and there's a gun.
Which is
It's like, what?
That is okay. Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, not a great movie. But I love that by 1979, they're like, how can we juice up this genre? Okay, it's the Poseidon Adventure. We're going to take it 1 second after the original ended and have scavengers go into the Poseidon Adventure original boat as it's sinking and have Telly Savalas play a kind of nefarious, like, under the radar third act reveal that he's gonna betray everyone and take all the riches on the Poseidon for himself. Like, it becomes a soap opera on a boat that's sinking, and it's kind of simultaneously awful and brilliant.
It's a hat on a hat. You're
It
like,
The title should have been Oceans 11,000 feet below the surface. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, man. Okay, thanks
Yes,
for listening,
yes.
everybody. We're going to cut it there. Can't top
We're out.
that.
You're welcome.
All right, let's talk about some of these characters in this film, because I think even though this film does no one any service setting them up, I think it's good to just have a kind of mental picture of them before we get into what happens with them. Okay, we talked a little bit about Josh Lucas. How would you define his character?
Handsome.
Good. Okay. Other words?
top rated. He got the top billing.
Oddly.
He's like loose cannon hero who doesn't play by the rules
Yeah.
and has no history or backstory, so it like doesn't care if he lives or
Yeah.
dies, and is a gambler literally, so it means he's gonna jump in.
Yeah. He's only out for himself. He works better alone.
Yeah, and he used to, in one kind of like off-screen line, we do learn that he used to work on a submarine. Like, he was in the Navy and he was on a submarine, hence his boat knowledge.
Just shoved in there.
Yeah.
Some editor
Thank
was
goodness.
like, wait a minute, we need to have some boat knowledge on this. Give that the gambler. He used to be... I mean, they play cards on submarines. We saw that on Das Boot.
Yes.
They got that from Das Boot. They play poker in
thing-
Das Boot.
A thing I like about the original a lot more is like they're just peeling maps off the walls to figure out where to go, and they're like, I don't know, like, the boat's upside down, I think it's this way, let's figure it out.
Well, not so much let's figure it out as Gene Hackman figures everything out and Ernest Borgnine yells at him for figuring it out.
But it's Gene Hackman and Ernest Borgnine.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so I mean, yes, I love them both. I think that it is a more narratively satisfying situation here where everybody kind of contributes a little bit. All these admittedly underwritten half sketch characters all do a little bit of contribution to figuring out what's going on.
Okay, what else about Josh Lucas? I mean, he's not a reluctant hero.
He is for
he?
a second. He is for the when he's like fixing to go and escape from the ballroom
yeah.
and climb up. The kid is like, "Mister, will you take me and my mom?" And then he reluctantly agrees. So he's a reluctant hero for 4.5 seconds.
Well, that was, yeah, he had to look down at his lines and then go, oh, this is the plot. Yeah, I have to. Okay.
Let's sidetrack for a second just to talk about the kid. We're always, child actors have a whole thing that they deal with, and, we're never out to criticize them. But I think it's interesting to compare how they utilize the kid here, how they utilize the kid in the first one, and what they do with the kid in the book, which is my preference. Halfway through the book, he disappears, never to be seen again.
Beautiful. Because that's what would happen in real life. Like,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Connor. Connor ran away like twice, making everyone go back and find him. Connor would be dead. Like,
Yes.
I love the 70. So the book is awesome because the kid's clever and then just disappears and dies, which is what would happen in real life.
Not clever enough.
In a way, right? Then in 72, the kid's clever because he's been like running around hiding and like exploring the ship without his mom's or
Sisters.
whatever his
Yeah,
whereabouts. Sister's whereabouts. That's right, the older sister. So
And he's a ship nerd.
Yeah.
He's a ship nerd. So
Yeah.
and people have been taken around and under, so he knows everything. This version, Connor's like one of those kids who would have like had a bone blood disease in England, like
It's a Dickensian waif.
a Dickensian waif who would just be like, I died of consumption in my bed. And the great, he's like, Mama, I got lost. You're right around the corner. I can't find you, Mama. Like, and he puts everyone in danger over and over again. He should have drowned. He should have, like, for sure.
And look, to quickly give credit to the child actor, watching the production featurettes, the kid is talking about doing his own stunts and learning to swim in his clothes, and I was like, kid, you seem like really charming and you have a real gung-ho attitude. Love that actor is great. So if he's listening to our podcast, I want this next.
He actually was great.
Yeah.
And he had to do a big underwater stunt, and he ends up saving them. Like, he out of nowhere, he just becomes a hero. I kept telling Joe, though, he was wearing a wig. I don't know why. There was definitely a wig, and I want to know the story about the wig.
Throughout the whole movie?
Was he?
I believe he was wearing a wig. I need to hear
Okay.
more of why. He might have had like a too modern of a haircut. I don't know.
You're treading
This is
into charged territory for us on this podcast with wigs.
This is a thing on this show. Truman has wig blindness, but I am shocked to learn that I might have wig blindness for this movie. Maybe I can't tell when they're wet.
It might be contagious, like the crabs on Das Boot. Like you may have gotten the wig blindness from me.
Uh-oh.
It's the way it moves. Like, it's in the back. I don't know what's going on. Maybe the kid has shape. I don't know. But he's great, but he does do like a big stunt and saves a bunch of them at the end. It is suddenly brave and has knowledge.
I can't imagine he did this stunt, but when after the wave hits and he's hanging from the piano and has to jump into the curtain that Kurt Russell's holding, first of all, just like Wolfgang Petersen, we haven't really talked about him yet that much, but he's kind of a fantastic visual director. It's able to immerse you into his stories, and my stomach lurched when he jumped from that piano, just because it's shot from like bird's eye view from above the piano that is on the ceiling, and you watch the kid just kind of drop, and I'm like, ugh, that got me a little bit. I have motion sickness, though. I would be the first to die on this adventure because I would have died 1 hour into leaving port from motion sickness. Like
Just from like the first.
Yeah. The dehydration of throwing up so much would have taken me.
The elevator would have got
You're
right away.
you're
An elevator on a ship. I can't think of something to trigger my motion sickness worse.
With wolves.
and they're floating up next to it. You'd be like Stella Stevens at the beginning of the Poseidon Adventure, where your introduction is a doctor coming and giving you a suppository for your motion sickness. That's your save the cat moment.
Does save the cat encompass pity?
You're like a little wounded bird. Look, I'll say that one thing I will give the original Poseidon Adventure credit for. I liked the kid in that a lot more than I liked the kid in this. The kid in that one is kind of just ready to go and up for anything, and he tells his sister to shove it a bunch of times, which is funny. And the kid in this is crying immediately, which is probably more what I would have been doing as a child in that situation.
So
but
you feel seen.
I feel
a little too seen, maybe.
I don't like being seen. I hate it when I am perceived.
Well, and half of her lines are Connor, because she doesn't know where he is.
Yeah.
He's just wandering off for some reason during a disaster. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't a kid like cling to his mom? He's just like, I'm gonna wander.
Okay, here's a question for you about character. In any other movie, has Kurt Russell dadded harder?
Overboard.
Well, I mean,
he definitely puritanical harder than he ever has.
I'm
Overboard. He was the best
Sweetheart,
dad
when
ever.
you button up your blouse, you're shaming the family.
Yeah.
The twins, which she...
Ugh.
That
The line I wasn't super...
That made me nauseous. That gave me motion sickness.
Yeah, him just even being aware of his sex life was super creepy. But
Yep.
I think Overboard, he's the best dad ever. Like, because he's super weird and like that was him, right? Like that was him trying to be his best dad after a
Yeah.
dead wife situation.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I literally wrote my first note I wrote in my notes is like, sex is bad right away to a 20-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Why would that dad even care? Like, and why are they
Right.
on vacation together? They clearly kind of hate each other. What's the situation that what?
What kind of mayoral...
Why did they go on
Yeah,
this
why
ship?
did you bring her boyfriend if you don't want him to have sex?
Right.
And he also says
What was the whole situation?
he says a line in that where he's like, "You're still technically under my roof," and I'm like, "Do you own the boat? What's your kind of? You're a firefighter, ex-mayor. How is this your roof? I think it's all your roof." At
And
that
the roof
point.
and the roof is about to become the floor, so not for very much longer.
If she was a teenager, that would have been the
Metaphor.
best. Like, fuck you, Dad line. The roof is under us now, Dad.
That was one of the scenes they
You on
cut.
the roof that's beneath my feet. That's what I was wondering. I was like, are they trying to pass her as 18? Because she's clearly like, hello, father. Like, she's clearly, we know who she is at this point. She's a star. We know her. She's clearly in her deep 20s. We're like, okay.
I would say on the topic of Kurt Russell and when has he dadded harder, the obvious answer for when he's dadded harder is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where his whole plot point is that he's been traveling the galaxy fucking life into different
He
life
is.
forms.
Yeah, he is
That's
Planet
true.
Dad in that movie for sure.
You can't really beat that.
Planet Dad, I'm calling that one right now.
I hope you wrote the title Planet Dad down,
I
by
did.
the way.
I'm writing. I got
I
dibs
love
on that one.
It's, the disaster film is man versus nature, but Planet Dad is man versus dad. The ultimate conflict.
Okay, what about Richard Dreyfuss?
I'm
yeah.
sorry. No, we can't talk about Richard Dreyfuss. I have one more thing for Kurt
Okay,
Russell.
all
on
right,
this.
all right.
He is okay. So you mentioned he is a former firefighter and also inexplicably former mayor of New York City.
Yeah, yes.
Never comes up. Never matters.
Is he like? Are they trying? Is he supposed to be Rudy Giuliani a little bit? 9/11 had happened. And Rudy Giuliani was not a fireman, but he was a prosecutor for the city who then became mayor and was the hero mayor. Are they, like, gunning for that kind of, like, thing?
I mean,
Maybe just.
his hair doesn't
leaning
run
into-
very much in this movie.
I didn't feel any corruption, but it felt like they were leaning into the 9/11 thing a lot. Like,
Yeah.
firefighters,
Yeah,
heroes,
yeah.
mayor, New York, never forget.
Greatest city in the world. Yeah.
Maybe it's a plan, an alternate reality where Steve Buscemi became mayor of New York.
God. Now,
Oh,
Okay, he's alive, guys.
Oh my.
Oh, I really believe the Big Lebowski. I'm so sorry.
and all those other Coen Brothers movies he dies in. Do you think, though, I mean, a part of me loves the idea of Steve Buscemi as mayor of New York, but then also every mayor of New York winds up, like, being horrible and corrupt and awful. So, like, would the cursed office of mayor of New York make Steve Buscemi evil?
Well, I don't know. It's possible.
Gotta drown. You gotta drown.
All right, I took the money. All right, I took it. Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna build a really nice consulate for the Turks.
Deep cut. Very deep cut.
That sounds like I was doing racism, but that's actually a true thing that happened with the current mayor of New York.
Okay, can we talk about the Dreyfuss?
Yes, I give you permission.
I first started to call him the Dre, and then I'm like, no, Andre Brower's in this, R.I.P. And then I'm like, okay, we'll call him the Fuss. And Richard Dreyfuss, also R.I.P. He's still alive, but his reputation's in pieces after his little tirade last year at the Jaws event.
Yeah, dead to me, I'd say.
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh,
I think I missed that. I missed that completely.
Oh.
We don't have to talk about it.
Okay.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I'll look it up afterwards. Don't have to do it on your podcast.
Let's-
Just look it up. That's my job.
Let's just
Google,
say
Google.
Move on.
that the public's perception of Richard Dreyfuss has capsized and exploded and sunk.
You should have had a bigger boat of knowledge.
Yes.
of respect for people who aren't like you. Yes.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God, I gotta look that up. I missed that completely.
So,
well, I was surprised by how skinny he was and
Yeah.
fit, and also playing a gay fella, which I thought, again, felt shoehorned. I felt they're like,
Yes.
we need some diversity. Let's just shove this in, because it's 2006 and we're so woke.
yeah, forget any, black African American characters, but we'll make him gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He'll live.
Yeah.
And because he's wearing an earring.
I didn't. That is the biggest bombshell to me on my second viewing, was just, I for some reason, I clocked, like, he was telling his coworkers about his divorce. For some reason, when he said when he was, maybe I got to check my own prejudices at the door. I don't know, but, like, it just didn't enter my head that he was talking about a husband and not his wife.
Lyndon, it's because you're
They
so
should've-
woke. You don't even hear sexuality. You're just like, they.
I was so bummed. Red Button's character in the original, like, he has the setup for, like, love interest.
Yeah.
His whole thing is
Yes.
loneliness, and I was hoping that Dreyfuss's character was going to have, like, a potential love interest. Like, hey, I'm so glad you saved me. And they embrace or something, and then you go, oh, man, good. His character had an arc. Instead, yeah, because that didn't go anywhere.
Instead, he gets an anti-arc.
It was a bummer.
Yeah, he wants, his
Yeah.
brass ring is to die, and he survives.
It's not. It's
And murders.
And he should have found love.
He
And he
murders to
murders.
survive.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, he kills.
Freddie Rodriguez coming into this movie and
Freddie
leaving as
Rodriguez.
fast as Bushwhacker Luke in the 1991 Royal Rumble.
he is impaled, and after being kicked off of a ledge by Richard Dreyfuss.
And he knows the most about the ship. At that point,
Yeah.
he is the expert.
Yeah.
He is the smartest person on the ship, and they kill him just to, like, cut him loose.
We should zoom in on this a little bit because I've been thinking about it nonstop since I first saw
all right,
it.
let's do it.
Okay, so the ship is capsized, the ragtag crew assembles in the ballroom, they're gonna go, and basically Kurt Russell finds this waiter and asks him, played by Freddie Rodriguez, character's name is Valentine, and is asking him for directions to the ship or something, and he basically says to him, hey, whatever you make in a year, I'll double it if you take us all, up and out of the ship. And Valentine is like, triple it. But yeah, so he comes with them. He's like a waiter for the ship or something. Yeah. They're trying to get through this elevator shaft. He helps them get a bridge thing through it. They climb through, and then he winds up. Richard Dreyfuss is dangling and getting pulled up, and Freddie Rodriguez is dangling off of Richard Dreyfuss's leg. They can't pull them both in. A thing is about to fall on them. And the hero of the movie says to Richard Dreyfuss, just kick him off. We're both going to die. And so Richard Dreyfuss apologetically kicks this guy off, and he falls down and gets impaled and then crushed and exploded.
In a breakneck, like, whirl of emotions, on the one hand, it's like the reaction Richard Dreyfuss is having to it was like, oh man, that is tapping into a little bit of something, and then he, like, falls so hard into 2006 when he hits the bottom with just a CGI spike going through his chest, and, like, how can we, this is coming right after the, like, Dark Castle films of House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, those remakes where it's just unnecessarily violent and contrived.
I gotta say, though, and again, in defense of this movie, I kind of respect how brutal just the whole concept is. The fact that, like, it's morally ambiguous and fucked, like, trolley problem logic of doing that. And I mean, it is also messed up, though, that Kurt Russell basically told this guy, hey, quit doing your job and come with us, I'm gonna bribe you, and then he's immediately the first one to die. That sucks.
Yeah.
But like, to just have that moral ambiguity put in there is cool. The movie doesn't do much with it, and leaves it hanging. But I mean, that's leaves it hanging is maybe a poor choice of words given how he dies.
Yes.
Too soon.
That is also, like, true to the original movie and the book, where Freddie Rodriguez is basically playing the Roddy McDowall part in this, and Roddy McDowall is one of the first to go in the first film. What I think, where we differ, I think in the first film, you feel the loss of Roddy McDowall's navigation, whereas here, like, we don't get any stakes attached to his navigation by the time he dies, because he's introduced and killed so quickly that, I don't know, his loss is really not felt for me.
I feel like that about the Dylan Johns character too, where he there was nothing earned with the trolley problem thing. There was no setup. He just seemed he's a gambling man. Like and incidentally, I think Josh Lucas had a really good performance. I think he was hamstrung. In case it sounded like I was piling on Josh Lucas before, I thought he was hamstrung by whatever edit was done or whatever script changes were made. He's just like, kick him loose. Well, what was his philosophy before? Has he always been the kick him loose guy? We don't know.
Yeah,
we
that's
don't.
true.
And Joe and I could talk a lot about that later, about like, we understand once the writers write the first draft and then
let's do
things
it.
come in and
go into it now,
because there's so Joe, if you want to explain how many movies, I think I've written 6 of the movies you've written like 12, 13, 15 disaster films, but we write movies that get rewritten a lot, and a lot of notes come in, and there's so many cooks, and the movie that you see on the screen is so different from the writers turn in.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Then the director comes in and changes stuff. Like, there's so many cooks. And a lot of cooks. And so a lot of the original intent is lost so fast. And a lot of like, what? Especially with editing, and and actors live and die by edits, and writers live and die by edits and rewrites. And once it leaves the writer's hands, then it just becomes the producer's folly. So I think I feel like this movie actually probably succumbed to a lot of that. I felt that a lot.
But hey, the great thing about putting your work in the hands of producers is that Hollywood producers have great judgment all the time and make wonderful choices. There's a folly here, I think, with this. Like, I think there was more here to Richard Dreyfuss's arc and everything else, because Freddy Rodriguez's character, like his whole thing, we get this established early on, is that he has been sheltering a stowaway on board who they later reunite with. And so, after he's died, Richard Dreyfuss then is talking to the stowaway, who's played by Mia Maestro, and she's talking about how she got to be on the ship and was saying, yeah, I need to go see my brother in New York. He's sick, but I couldn't afford a ticket. But I met this guy who worked on the ship, and he let me stay in his cabin, and he was really nice. And then the scene cuts away very abruptly. I think in the original draft,
abruptly.
She was going to say to Richard Dreyfuss his name was Valentine, because they set up earlier when he and Valentine are climbing across. There's this clunky way of Valentine saying my name is Valentine to him. So I think it was supposed to be in there that Richard Dreyfuss's whole thing is like, oh shit, that like I have to care for this woman now because I killed the guy who was helping her get across, like as a tribute to him.
Yes. And yes, like it's a Bambi situation. Like, I got to take care of Bambi because I killed your mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think there's evidence of that, because when you look at some of the in-depth synopses about this film, they actually make a more explicit connection between the two characters. That I'm like, oh really? I didn't pick that up from my first watch, and then I watch it a second time, like, yeah, that's not in there.
Yeah.
Well, the way he like holds her head and caresses her intimately and kisses her on the way down through the water, it's like, what the?
Yeah.
They knew each other for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
right.
They saw each other after the buffet. They may have seen a karaoke performance, maybe, but what? Kissing. So yeah.
Do we know what was cut? I mean, has that been released? I didn't come across that in any of my research.
I don't know.
I think the narrative and want of each character.
Ouch! Coming in hot.
The want and backstory.
It does feel
None of the CGI.
It does feel like those opening party scenes where Josh Lucas is kind of walking around and bumping into every character. I mean, it just feels like a load-bearing party where it's like they have to shoehorn in every bit of kind of like, I'm going to learn every fact about you in this chance encounter. Okay, next.
Yeah, when he bumps into her, stop it, I'm a single mom!
Yeah.
Like that's a weird thing to say at a party. I'm Latino, don't do that! I'm gay! Why would you hit me? Like, it was weird. It felt shoehorned. I've got nothing to live for! I got a martini! Hey!
While all of this is happening, Fergie is on stage in the background. just giving...
My lovely lady loves. Check it out.
Fucking Fergie, wow. Let's pivot real quick and talk about the reason you greenlight this movie in 2006. You have updated special effects from 1972. Obviously, CGI is huge now. You've got budgets that can support it. If you're going to greenlight this movie, you're going to greenlight it on your vision for the wave hitting the boat. Something we don't get in the 2005 version.
Because it's terrorists in the 2005 version, right?
That is correct. As far as I know, Lauren, you're the only one here, I believe, unless Joe also saw it, the 2005 TV version of this movie.
Yes. I remember watching it and going like, oh, okay. But just going like, oh. Like, we're upside down.
I have not seen it.
Commercial break.
Yeah, they're terrorists on the board, and they suicide bomb a hole in the side of the ship, which turns it over.
Ripped from the headlines.
And again, at the time,
Wow, I thought you were being facetious.
it was so
Okay.
it was
racist
so
Poseidon.
too soon. It's racist as F. It's so too soon. It's so bizarrely like lightly dusted with any. It's such a weird too soon riding on the waves again of too soon. Like
Mark Wahlberg tweeting that if he'd been on the Poseidon, it wouldn't have gone down that way.
So I really like how they handle the wave in the first one. I felt like that set the stakes, and I think probably like secured the popularity of disaster films in the 70s for both the special effects and the way that it shows all of the characters, being thrown into it. I was a little nervous going into this one, going, okay, they've got CGI. It's just going to be like, it's going to be Titanic on steroids. How are they going to do this? And I was really, really impressed with, from the setup with Richard Dreyfuss on the deck, all the way through the like pandemonium that happens. I really thought they handled this well, and I think it's right in Wolfgang Petersen's wheelhouse. Like, he signed on going, I think I could do that.
Well, I will say, I thought that I loved the wave effects themselves. That was beautiful because they took advantage of where we were in 2006 with the effects, as we said. Like, it was very, the deaths
blocks
are really
out the moon.
scary. Yeah, it's really scary, and there's just no hope, and they're just complete. It shows how small we are as people to nature. The only thing I was missing that I loved from the storm is the tension when they saw it coming.
Yeah.
It seemed to kind of happen very fast, and the captains didn't do a lot, and it seemed like they kind of steered the wrong way, because you should go into a wave this way. If anyone surfs, you're supposed to go this way.
What?
They turn their boat sideways, which is the wrong thing to do. Like, you're just going to capsize, obviously. They're like, turn the boat! Like, why?
Monday
Maybe you
morning
should
boat
go-
captain here. Wow, you think you could do better?
Because it's
I could not do better, but I do know as like a swimmer, you don't turn your body sideways to a wave. You go under or towards it. You don't turn sideways to just get rolled.
Yeah.
Like, I look like a seal in the water. I would just roll until I died. So I wouldn't go that way. And it's like they quickly go, bah! But we also don't know the captains at all. So we don't even know what that's. I would love to have seen that scene of tension first. That's what I loved about the Titanic, is that you see him go like, oh no. Like, you see those few minutes of like, oh. And the storm built that up. But like,
Here we
they just
get,
turn
like,
the boat sideways.
Here we get like comically large binoculars
So
looking
big,
out
so
at the
needlessly
night
big.
sky, and I have to admit, I have to imagine that they're probably like authentic, nautical binoculars, but to the untrained audience, like, they look like you're doing the airplane to airport version of this movie.
yes.
They're so
Binoculars.
big. Yeah.
Binoculars.
Guys, you're not gonna believe this shit. Take a look.
My neighbor's sunbathing topless. Check it out.
On shore.
No, the other thing, the wave.
Quickly pan over, and then you see the wave. Yeah.
I can see my house from here. Wave.
It would be. So Leslie Nielsen played the captain in the original. Wouldn't it be kind of great if they got him back to be the dude with the huge binoculars in this one?
Oh.
He was still around.
It would have compromised the serious nature of the film they were trying to make, but I don't care.
Yeah. But I like that. I mean, yes, I think there is a lot of that stuff missing. There's kind of just a ceiling to this movie that I didn't expect much more than. But
Or a floor.
well,
depending.
At this
That's
point,
upside
I'm
down.
not sure if
Upside
it's
down.
the floor or the ceiling yet. It could be.
Oh yeah, at this point,
could
it's
be
ceiling.
either.
Yeah.
I really thought that Richard Dreyfuss, like, he tries to call his husband one last time, gets a voicemail, gives up, throws it in the ocean, overboard.
His
and
old ass phone, his brick of a phone.
I think even in 2006 it looked pretty, like, iPhones were like almost a thing at that
We're
point.
on the cusp of them. Yeah, you could have had a Zune,
But he starts
But on a ship.
Yeah, what's the network? I mean, it's 2025, and I get shit signal in my condo.
And he was doing a voice male, not a voice female. It's important.
Yes.
He had an earring.
Oh God.
Sorry, go on.
No, but I really liked that, he starts to climb the railing to go, make his final plunge. Like, we're in his final moments, and like, that's an interesting premise. What if in your final moments you see a major disaster about to happen, and like, it prevents you from doing the thing that you were going to do, and like propels you into the exact opposite thing that you were, intending to do to begin with. Like, instead of wanting to kill yourself, now you're struggling to survive.
Yeah.
Did I miss it? Did he have a monologue where he's like, "I see that life is worth living now"? Did he ever get that moment?
It was
Or
all in
it
his
cut?
eyes. It was all.
It was all in his earring. What I did appreciate on a repeat viewing is that immediately before he goes to jump off the deck, he's at dinner with his friends and he orders an incredibly expensive bottle of wine, and then it's like, "I'll be right back." So it's like, you ordered a $5,000 bottle of wine, you're gonna go take your own life. So are your friends gonna have to pick up the bill, or are they gonna run that on your card? Like, that's I almost respect it.
Either way, give away your earthly possessions, or you know what? One last prank on your friends.
I guess.
Turns out they all got a free tab.
Did his friends get to drink the wine before the ship flipped? That's what I want to know.
If you
they all
go
paid.
frame by frame, once the wave hits, you can see their friends flying away from the table. One of them's got the wine in one hand and it's pouring into a wine glass in the other.
He's got the glass tilted. He's it's got great legs on it.
Hey. It's, I don't know, too much of the tannins. I think
It's
they
from
all
New
paid
Jersey.
the biggest bill of all, you guys.
It's fair. It's the price you pay.
Except for Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
Yes.
A deep irony. Yeah.
The ultimate dine and dash.
Dine and splash.
Ooh.
Too soon?
No. That's another title. Write that one down.
Speaking of splashing, I was watching some of the making of featurette about this, and for the scenes where the ballroom floods and all the windows smash in, and Fergie and Andre Braugher finally go to Davy Jones' locker, they had. I mean, they built these big elaborate sets on multiple sound stages, and they straight up flooded it with like 90,000 gallons of water. Or it's just insane. And
Practical?
They did it practically. They had
True fear of mine.
Stunt performers standing on the set, hooked up to wire foo things. The water comes smashing through. They yank the stunt people back. Water completely floods it. It's unbelievable. They say what you will about this movie. They put their whole ass into making it.
I wrote this down somewhere. I can't find it, but I looked up because I was going through the cast list, and I was shocked at how many stunts were in this movie. And I think it was something like 240 stunt performers were employed for this.
Yes.
And with CGI back then, it was still cheaper to use stuntmen than CGI.
Yeah.
Honestly, it really was. So they were throwing themselves in a la Titanic, because Titanic did the same thing. They had the water tanks in Mexico.
Yeah.
I will say that those scenes did look incredible. Like, they are incredible and really scary. And it's very, that whole scene, my favorite part, well, we'll talk about this in a second, but like the flooding of the main ballroom and those deaths, and then the weird different kinds of deaths are really exciting and scary. It's like impalement, crashes, flames, electrocution. There's like so many different ways, because you go like drowning, obviously, but it's like, no, it's all
that.
It's brutal.
I think this is an improvement over the original, because the original is just like falling. It's a lot of like just getting flipped over and crushed by moving furniture. I felt this was sufficiently chaotic. Like this was like Carrie at the prom level Poseidon Adventure.
And what I love about that is they can't. Again, it goes back to what I said before: is you can't outsmart it, because you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what piano chord or curtain is going to fall, and you get trapped. Like, there's so many weird ways to die that like you can't outsmart this chaos.
And the way that a lot of these scenes are just set up and shot, like in the immediate aftermath of the thing, you'll get the camera like moving in through a destroyed landscape, focusing in on the principals, but there's like sparks and shit going off in the background. There's people flailing like on fire running through it, extras falling down. There is so many people and so much stuff happening, visual depth to every one of these shots. It's even for a lesser Wolfgang Petersen movie, it looks really good. It's very well directed.
It does include one of my like favorite ridiculous tropes in movies when there's like chaos like this. I realize it's going to be a visual thing, so maybe help me out with some word pictures. But like when Josh Lucas gets thrown and like he's waking up from the debris, he gets up and the one thing he does is like. He puts his one finger to like the back of his ear temple just to see if he's like, I'm okay.
Water.
Yeah. No, like not even that. Just like, do I still have a pulse?
Yeah.
Almost, I don't know. It's a very like a dainty little gesture.
He's
like, no,
basically
I'm
unscathed, but he's just like, yep, nope, no minor cuts by me. Right? Yeah.
I'm still here.
Well,
I felt
and
myself.
Joe and me, since we make movies all the time together and stuff, we always go like, oh, that was a long day of shooting. So I just did a commercial that took 3 days to shoot because it was a lot of stunts.
Holy cow.
3 days for a 30-second commercial. And that, all I can picture is there's an AD with the megaphone, all right, reset, which means all those guys gotta go back up the top. They probably did each stunt 1,000 times, and like, or not 1,000, like at least 10 times.
Right.
And they had to reset all the rigging, all the breakaways, all the things. Or they said, we can only do it 5 times, so you got to get it right the first. You had to do a few dry runs. Like the amount of budget just on the wasted rehearsals or time, or just like they tried to get it in as many shots as they could. They probably had to do it many times. That to me is always like, that's that long day of shooting where that guy's plunged in the water 5 times. He's gonna get pulled back up. He's wet. They dry him off. He resets, does it again. Like that stuff is like, that's the budget.
Yeah.
We're not going to make the day today, guys. Buckle in.
That's why you bring in someone like Wolfgang Petersen. And Truman, I didn't watch the special feature on this, but I'm curious if this was a practical effect where one of the details I loved about this is like in the original, you just see the dining room scene. I mean, after Leslie Nielsen gets killed, you just see everyone in the ballroom.
Yeah.
This one you see all the different rooms, the kitchen, like
so good.
You see the aftermath of that in the original, but the scene that, or the little shot that really took my breath away was the swimming pool.
Yes.
As that gets turned over and all the water in the swimming pool gets thrown out, and the people that were in the swimming pool get thrown out with it.
It's a rogue wave within a rogue wave. Yo, dog, I heard you liked rogue waves.
There's a kid in there playing with a boat that gets flipped over. We Men in Black closer to it, and we watch another Poseidon Adventure inside of that.
It's like those things they do now that CGI are like, oh,
yeah,
backing up.
It's not beyond the Poseidon Adventure; it's within the Poseidon Adventure.
Within, yeah. They had a whole mini pool Poseidon Adventure, Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah.
What I love about this segment is what Joe and I are accused of and need more of in our writing is the hiding under tables moments, which I know Joe can speak to this. We get told all the time as writers to do more hiding under tables, which means like the suspension's there and there's different ways to die. It's not just one big way to die. There's like moments of like suspense and then boom, something else happens. Yeah. And I think that was happening a lot in this disaster moment of like, we're okay, blah! And like you think you're okay. And Jurassic Park, we call it hiding under tables because in Jurassic Park the little kids are hiding in like the little silver drawer. And there's just like so many different ways to die. It's not just dinosaur attack, but you might be on the glass. You might have the thing fall. You might have this thing. So it's not just being eaten by a dinosaur. There's a bunch of different ways to die. Yeah. Hiding under tables is your best way to delay that tension. And that tension build is so great. And this, I love this segment because they find a bunch of different ways to die. Because you go like, you drown. But it's like, no, you don't. There's elevators. Yeah. There's stairs. There's pianos. There's cords, there's electricity, there's other people falling on you.
Floating wolves.
Hide and you think you're okay. They're like, ah. And that's the thing that makes wolves. The thing that hurts my heart is people who are like, we're okay. Blah. Like that's the saddest thing. Like,
unexpectedly. Yeah. That's why I don't know. I feel like there's DNA between this and horror movies, like particularly with I mean, not explicitly, but like in Japanese horror films, there's like the difference between them and American horror films is like something could come into the frame from any angle. It's not just going to be the killer walking through the doorway or appearing in the background. Like, you could be lying in bed and like suddenly hair is dripping from the top of your head, and you never know where it's going to come from. That feels very similar to these disaster films. And the other thing that like this I think captures well is, as we all know, in real natural disasters, it's often not the disaster part that is the most dangerous and the most deadly. It's all of the things that come after it, the gas lines, the electricity, the
Yes.
flooding, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Joe and I live in Encino, and they just recently were like, hey, have you checked if you're in an aquification zone? Which means the water level just go during an earthquake. So we looked up our apartment, we're like, oh yeah, we are in a swamp. The water will just engulf our apartment immediately because we'll just become quicksand. Yeah,
All right.
yeah, we're just
Gotta
ready
be
for
ready for
quicksand now.
quicksand,
Cool.
I guess.
Everyone
Okay,
always,
cool.
as kids, we all thought that quicksand was going to be a thing we had to deal with, and it never was. But you guys actually do have to prepare for quicksand.
Yeah, Atreyu trained us. A never-ending story. We know what to do.
Wolfgang Petersen.
Feed the horse to the
You
death
just got to get a horse
swamp
for
and
your
you get out.
apartment, just part
Right.
of your emergency
There you
kit.
go. We got it.
Speaking of ways to die, though, I have to say the Poseidon is a very explodey boat. I don't get why a passenger cruise ship is just kind of continuously exploding. Like, what is on here, guys? Are you transporting like mortar shells for the war?
I don't know the specifics because I am not the little kid on this boat, but that was one thing that kind of rang true to me, is like water, whatever could like get to the gas lines in the kitchen, and that causes an explosion, and then that can chain react to, I don't know, the high tension wires of the elevator, and those fling off and hit a power box. Like there's something that kind of rings true. Maybe that's Final Destinationing the whole thing, but I don't know.
Well, what drove me crazy as someone who lived on a cruise ship from 1999 to 2000 is when disaster happens, which we had a hurricane, we had some power outages, we had some moments, immediately they cut the power and you go to emergency power mode and all the watertight doors close. So like there is none of this. Like, so I had to like suspend my like a lot of stuff had to go wrong for the boat just to flood nonstop and just people to be able to go haphazardly around. Like literally they shut off all the zones and all the power's cut and it goes into emergency power mode immediately. They cut the power, they cut the gas, they cut everything. So like I had to go into a complete like, this is a fantasy.
You've never had to escape through a propeller?
No. And also like the second anything goes wrong, all the boats deployed. Like you go into it, like the second that's another thing that we haven't even talked about, which I'm probably jumping in narrative, but like the second they're like, there might be a wave coming, we would have started evacuating immediately. Like we had to do safety of life at sea training, which is SOLAS training. We had to do it every day, where you do like this safety of life at sea international training. The boats are very much they're covered. They're not a raft like an
Little
airplane
rubber
raft.
raft.
They are like a full covered boat, like a canoe with a cover on it looking thing, with life. They're very safe and they have rudders that can take you. They have motors, and they're immediately deployed the second there's like a in the ocean. Like they just abandoned ship. The fact that people saw a wave were like, meh, like there's so much disbelief of safety of life at sea training for 2006. 1972? Maybe, but 2006, no way! There's no way! The second that wave was there.
This one really crept up on us, guys. What with our GPS and radars, those waves, they're crafty.
It's a stealth wave.
There would have been 30 ships, 30 helicopters, 30 boats. There would have been so many, especially for a cruise ship. There would have been so many boats right away there. It couldn't even got to its side before they're like, here we go. Like, we've all seen what happens in real, disasters.
Yeah. Now, Lauren, is it true, I've heard this, that on cruise ships, when there's an emergency or something, the people who they put in, like, on the crew, the people who are in charge of, like, organizing the passengers are the ship's improv performers? Like, you were kind of...
Literally.
You were the Fergie of your boat, right? And, like,
I was the Fergie.
Fergie would be in charge in this situation.
Yeah, they literally make us be safety of life at sea training. Anyone who's is a person of employment is in charge of safety of life at sea.
Wow.
And the improvisers especially, because they said, quote, because we are facially recognizable as stars of the ship, they would come to us as a safety device. So like they will be looking for people they know.
Whoa.
So they'll come to anyone in uniform or people they recognize first.
What an interesting
So like they'll come to the stars.
psychological dimension to that. Wow.
Yeah.
Follow her. She's from Crazy
But
One.
especially, like, you might be on stage, and they're going to look to you on stage of what to do. So you have to remain really calm and direct from stage what to do, and then tell them where to go, and then you'll be outside in your little life preserver and do the thing. And they wanted us special performers because we have a voice and a presence that helps keep people calm, and people recognize us from the stage shows, which is such a weird thing.
Well, people would be looking to me sometimes, I bet, for help, because I often get mistaken for Patton Oswalt. So, like, wait a minute, I saw a King of Queen once.
Human Boy Scout. Hey. You definitely, if I had to cast a Boy Scout out of the four of us, I'd be like, you and Joe, we're in. Truman and I, we got to call back.
I'm just wondering, what kind of emergency situation are you going to be in where, like, I need Patton Oswalt's help? Like, no disrespect, I love Patton Oswalt, but it's not like he's the outdoor survival whiz. Like, it's only if you're being, like, attacked by a Star Wars character or something am I going to want to ask for Patton Oswalt to help me.
I need someone to quickly reference an obscure 1960s horror film.
I need a Ratatouille the chef real quick.
Why don't we start talking about some of these other, like, after the Rogue Wave hits, we get the first kind of group of survivors led by Josh Lucas, who are, I don't fully understand his motivation for, like, I'm going to get off the ship by myself, and no one else is coming with me. Oh, you want to come with me? Okay, you can come with me. Just keep up.
I mean, look, he's a gambler. He knows when to hold them, when to fold them, and when to run. So this is... There's a time.
I should have listened.
Again, I mentioned earlier, I thought they all should be like, come on, guys, let's all go. Instead, they're like, let's just get off the ship.
Yeah, I do love
a little weird. That's a thing I liked about the original book and the movie is, like, there's a kind of... In this movie, there's no, like, theology discussions. There's no, like, motivating, like, ideologies at cross purposes. I really liked that in the original, as much as it was probably just arguing between Gene Hackman and Ernest Borgnine. There was a kind of, like, kind of force behind it without it being messagey, and that felt very missing here. Like, they're just doing things to get through this.
Fast.
Yeah, they're doing things very fast, and they're doing all of them.
Why have a theme?
As the hater of the original Poseidon Adventure, I agree. I think it's cool when movies have themes, and I think it's cool when movies build characters up and everything, and that is certainly lacking here. But I think for an exciting disaster blockbuster movie, things happen very fast. Okay, it does that very well. Like, they do a good job of keeping it, even if there's nothing behind it, the minute to minute of, like, oh shit, water's chasing us. How do we get out of this room? That is constructed well.
That's why I love watching the trailer for Poseidon 2006 as opposed to watching the whole movie.
It's 1 minute shorter than the
actual. Okay, I'm taking shots.
I loved in the Gene Hackman speech. He's like, here's the rules of the land. We got to go up through the floor and cut our way out. Like, we know the rules, and there's like, it's gonna be risky, but if you stay here, you die. The other one's just like, let's just go and leave the others. They're all, we're good. They didn't pay enough for these people. Like, look, and if anyone tries to come with us, kick them off your leg. Just kick them off your leg, Richard Dreyfuss.
That's true.
Like, which makes them all unlikable immediately, because like, there's no heroes rising above at that point. And the only people who are coming along just kind of overheard them, or like, can we go too? I have a kid, can I go? And like, she literally says like, Mom, can we go? And he's like, yeah, let's go with those guys. Like, there's never an invitation. They just kind of come.
That's a really good point. That is a very, like, the 70s one has this kind of 70s mentality of, like, we're all in this thing together. We've all got to get through. And this one is all, it's more just like, you're on your own.
And I will say, like, I think the Poseidon Adventure movie, the first one from 72, is the perfect, like, middle ground between this movie and the book, where the book, like, they take time to walk off and go have sex for a little while. There's two people who have, like, this Baccharian, like, feast of food while everyone is, like, resting for the night. It's kind of weird. That part doesn't quite feel natural to being in extreme circumstances. Whereas I feel like the 72 version is very good at pacing that out and keeping us, rooted in each of the characters' emotional journeys.
Well, they nailed that in Titanic, which I remember as a person of that age, because I was exactly Kate Winslet's age, I think, at the time. And I was like, true love, she finally had sex with the person she loved. The handprint, oh my God. Like, they showed you how much passion and love there was, because you got to see them love each other for a second. So you got to see the handprint in the car. You got to see the dance on the toes moment. You got to see them misbehaving and running around. So you got to see their love. We just didn't get to see those moments of joy.
And I guess to this film's credit, though, like, it almost doesn't seem interested in that. Like, there is no proxy to the Jack Roberts and Shelley Duvall characters here. You know, there is no proxy to the Red Buttons character here, really. I mean, Richard Dreyfuss to a degree.
Yeah.
But they're like, we're not going to have this heartbreaking moment where, you know, this woman who's been put down by everyone else throughout the whole film, you know, has this heroic moment, saves everyone, and then dies of a heart attack, and then we watch her husband weep. Like, that breaks my heart. I couldn't, like, every time I watch that gets me. Grandpa Joe just, like, breaking down because his true love is gone. This film doesn't even, like, attempt to have something like that.
Well, we had the comedy of Entourage, who's got a whiskey flask.
Okay.
And I'm just going to call him Entourage because that's how we all know him.
Okay. We got to talk
Lucky
about
Larry.
Lucky Larry, who is my favorite
Lucky
character
Larry.
in the movie.
Yes, because he's, like, funny and brings life and is like...
He's so committed to being a dick. He's one of the other gamblers from the ship, and he is, from the moment, like, he wakes up from the ship flipping over, he is being rude and aggressively shitty to everyone. He is mocking Kurt Russell for having been the mayor. Like, oh, you were mayor, but then you couldn't take it, so you quit, and you got divorced. And they're, like, on a burning boat, and, like, and Kurt Russell's trying to save him, and he's shitting on him to his face.
At that moment, I was put in mind of, like, I don't know if you've seen when Trump was not elected the first time, like, Michael Rappaport went on Instagram and just, like, went on this long monologue, like, get the fuck out of here. We don't want to fucking see you anymore.
Yeah.
And, like...
Babe, that
You're
was
a
the actor,
fucking
Michael
loser.
Rappaport. That was the guy. Babe, that was the guy. We were trying to remember his name last night because I went on a chemistry read with him to be his wife.
Oh.
Babe, it was Michael Rappaport. Oh my God, I can't believe it came up. So that's a small world. I read to be his wife on the show. That was Michael Rappaport. Oh my God, I couldn't remember his name. But I love the tiny flask that becomes a problem and then finally goes over. It's like, how Mary Poppins is this flask? And he's sipping it for like 3 hours. Like, anyone who sneaks booze into a world knows you can't be sipping that thing the whole day.
Maybe
and it's not a big problem.
Maybe he's like recovering
He likes the
alcoholic and he's
taste.
holding it like for insecurities. Like, there's not actually anything in there.
But when it goes over, he's like, no! And it's like, how much can be left?
If you're a gambler,
Really?
it's a good way to tip off your competition. Like, oh, they think I'm drunk, but really, I'm sipping on ginseng.
LaCroix.
My brain's working extra time now.
I look, and I don't want to. I don't want to put anybody's shit in the street, Joe and Lauren, but I watched Planet Dune, and the protagonist in that is sipping from a small flask for a lot of the movie. And maybe that's magical future moonshine, but I'm just saying, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw flasks.
It was Grandma's moonshine.
That's
It's the
right.
future,
Yeah.
Truman.
That's right.
It's
That's what it was.
spiced moonshine.
We delicately did that so we could give her a like plot point that we could use at the end, and then it just became so much more aggressive through the story, through rewrites and editing, that we were like, okay. We did it kind of like, we tried to make her like a rough and tumble, like she's got problems. She had a past, and that's why she's getting sent on this bum mission. But then it just became like
Yeah, it's a central plank of her character is drinking.
Drinking jet fuel.
Yeah, well, you know.
And how much it changes when the closed captions come into play, because under those scenes it just says glug 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 glug.
Well, okay. Speaking of rocket fuel, though, in the same scene where Lucky Larry is, you know, they're in like this big atrium that has now been turned upside down, and the bottom of it is filling with water, and they've got like some beam that they all have to shuffle across. At one point during this, like the boyfriend character starts to climb across it, and Lucky Larry is taunting him and going like, "Oh, look at the monkey boy!" Ooh, ooh, ooh. Like, I have. I don't know why he has to be such a dick about it.
Kevin Dillon giving a performance of an actor who knows he's in a film for one day's shoot.
Yes.
Like, I am stepping off of Entourage. I don't have a lot of range. I'm going to give you that character times 10.
But Kevin Dillon is then, he, after being a shit to everyone, he's trying to go across this thing, and an elevator, like, smashes down out of the ceiling and just creams him. He's dead as hell. But then, like, fuel from the ship's engine room, which is above them, I guess, starts then leaking down, like, in a big cascade through this open area they're trying to get through, and then it somehow catches fire and turns into a flaming waterfall. Below, yeah. And that is dope as hell. That's a really cool set piece. And also, based on the production featurette, they actually made a fire waterfall.
What?
Yeah, it was a real thing.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
That is crazy. How do you even do that?
I mean, I guess...
Just thinking of gas prices, and that scares me.
Well...
That was some Vegas guys. There were some guys from Vegas. Like, I got it. You see that pirate show we do at Treasure Island? I got you.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. It's like moments like these that I'm like, okay, I'm watching a disaster movie now. Like, this is it's a fire waterfall inside a sinking ship. Like, this is cinema.
The other thing that really cracks me up about that scene with Lucky Larry is another character like Freddy Rodriguez, who is introduced and disappears comically fast. He makes the rookie sitcom mistake of saying, I'm going to go first, I'm going to be fine, I'm Lucky Larry, you got to be lucky to be named Lucky Larry. And he steps out, drops his lucky flask, and then gets crushed by a falling elevator immediately. Like,
lost his nickname after that.
The second you say I'll be back, you're not going to be back.
Maybe the flask was what made him lucky. So the second he lost that,
a cursed object.
Yeah. Well, a blessed object, really. He became cursed the second he lost it. Yeah.
He should have become protagonist after that. He should have led them out of the ship. Just drop the flask and just go, hey, I'm lucky. Step aside.
It is weird that they really asshole code him when the people he's hanging out with just sent an innocent man to his gruesome death by kicking him down an elevator shaft.
So the kind of pattern to this, these obstacles is they cross one big set piece, and then they kind of collect themselves, but not for too much, not enough for them or us, the audience, to breathe at all or get to know them.
Heavens,
but
no.
Like they need it's almost like an escape room in that they have to find like one little key to get to the next big set piece, and after they cross the lobby, it is the lobby, right? With all the elevators.
I think it's the lobby, the big atrium thing,
Atrium,
atrium. That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
They get to the other side, and first of all, they're gonna open this door. Josh Lucas is looking at it, and the kid's with him, and there's this kind of quote unquote cute moment between the two of them where
I liked it.
Oh, Truman. The kid comes over, goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Thinking." And he goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm also thinking."
What are we thinking about?
And they're gonna go through these doors, but he stops the kid from opening them because he splashes some water on it, and it like steams immediately.
That's
cool. It was a good touch.
It was a good bit. This movie's better than you guys are giving it credit for. Go
on. But they kind of all collect themselves and move on to the next set piece, which is having to crawl through the air vents.
Oh yeah.
And as someone who's also claustrophobic, being motion sick and claustrophobic simultaneously on a ship and having a fear of drowning, like, this is not fun for me.
They're like stacked up on top of each other, having to climb through these vents and then climb up vertically, and water is coming up behind them, filling the vents slowly, and then at the top there's a grate over the top of it, and they have to unscrew the screws on it, and they have to pass up a little pendant necklace with a cross on it to use as an impromptu screwdriver.
Jesus saves them literally.
Yeah, but it doesn't save her later. But
the fuss gets stuck.
Yes, but then he gets a push, and
he does get a push.
And Josh Lucas is down at the bottom of the stack of them, trying to keep everybody organized and encourage them, while water is going up around his lips. And
you call that encouragement?
I mean,
he's kind of just yelling at them.
I would
push his foot. Push it. Just push his foot.
Listen. If it was me in that situation, I would probably just I'd be banging my head against the side of the thing to just kill myself, so I wouldn't have to drown in a vent looking up a bunch of people's butts. Like
Speak for yourself.
Okay, hey, one man's horrible way to die is another man's paradise. I like this sequence is very effective. This is gonna stick with me for a long time. This is horrifying in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it's like this is one of the reasons I'm like, this is the definitive boat upside down adventure movie. Like this is heart-pounding adventure, and
I got two notes to this. One, Lauren, you had said a hat on a hat on a hat when we were talking about the Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. That's kind of, it feels like what's happening here is like they're trapped in the heat vent and there's a grate that has screwed them, into it, and water is rising, and Richard Dreyfuss gets stuck, and someone is having a panic attack. It's a little like too much all at once for me. I mean, it is effective though. I'll give you that, but like, take one of those elements out.
Take off one piece of jewelry before you leave the house.
Yes.
Thank you. That's the rule. What not to wear. I do. So one of the things I loved is that moment at the door. We just briefly washed over was the moment at the door.
Yeah.
It's like, again, a firefighter is involved because like the door is hot. Shh, I brought a thing. I got water. Like we at least acknowledge that they're aware of heat.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they just go like,
well,
it was a flash heat. Meh. All right.
He wasn't backdraft, so
right. Exactly.
It holds true.
So the firefighter.
Another
thing,
universal
so
attraction.
Thank you. And I worked there. But the vent, what I loved about this is it brings in the Die Hard magic, because it's the Die Hard 90s magic of the vent. But also the vent in Die Hard was like a little like this. This one is this, which is extra scary.
Yeah.
Because like it really is like if you drop down, you're stuck. And there's another movie that happens where they get to the end and it's locked. And I want to say it's like it's another disaster film where they get to the end of the thing and it's blocked. That to me is so exciting and scary. Of like, I know a way out. I know a way out. Everyone follow me, and they get there and it's locked.
Yeah.
And I feel like that rings into a lot of like hero drama that all of us have felt before. Like, follow me, trust me, and then you get there, you're like, oh, I have killed us. Great.
Yeah.
That moment is so scary and so great.
Yeah.
And the water rising. This is the only time in the movie I actually felt really scared for them, because that claustrophobia, they're stacked up in kind of order of importance at this point. And her panicking, right? And her panicking was so realistic. For like, I can't, because she knows it's a death sentence, but also below the water's rising, and to see the water rising means if she would have stayed, she would have died, and that's the only way is up. But then when they get there and it's that grate, and you can see it's sharp, and it's thick, and it's heavy, and then they have to get the little kids. That's where the little kid comes in. He's like, I gotta use my little kid hands to do the thing. That is so scary, and you have to rely on this kid who's been a foppish nutball this whole time.
I need to unscrew
Connor,
the grate.
There's a righty lefty tiny white. I don't know what it is. Like that whole thing was like, oh my god.
It's held on with underwear. It's a strange design. You said that these cruise ships are held together with spit and chewing gum. It turns out it's actually.
That's the phrase. Lefty loosey tiny white.
Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson got out of prison in the Old West using wet underwear, so there's truth to it.
But her being her cross was like, oh my god, and it happened so fast, and they all just went, yeah, like right away. Like, we have to have some sort of screwdriver, and like all these engineers and professionals don't have any. There's like a cross. Yeah. And she said it so fast, she knew it right away. And
this cross looks like a 3/8 of an inch Phillips head.
Yeah. I have tried to take apart holiday decorations way harder than that screw went loose. Like, seriously.
I mean, it's like an IKEA screw to get this industrial grating off there. It's a little too easy.
And there's 4 of them. I think that's where I kind of, like, simultaneously had PTSD of, like, sinks leaking and having to get the valve shut off before, like, my house is destroyed. Like, I was kind of feeling that in this moment. But also, like, they're such thick-ass screws, and, like, they can't get it. Then all of a sudden they got all 4, and it's off. That kind of was a little, I don't know.
It's like...
It was a little lackluster to all of the tension they set up in the scene.
It's like 2 twists to the left, and then you just see the screw, like, just pop up and pop loose.
Yes! Like and I feel like I only saw them do 2. Yeah. I feel like I only saw them go, it's like I don't think I saw the other 2.
It's like it's hinged on the other side or something, so it just flips up.
It's like in Poltergeist, there's a little ghost pushing the screws up like the twig out of the ground.
You know what? That's the other thing for the remake of Poseidon. Ghosts.
Ooh.
Sharks, make it haunted.
There is Ghost Ship, which I highly recommend
And
people go see.
the Asylum's Titanic 666. If you like ghosts and you like ships, I'm helping my bosses out. I'm like doing a little promo. There you go, guys. This one's on me.
Paying the bills.
I am gonna go watch that tonight
and have nightmares.
Yeah. So that was I think that scene was very effective. They get to the next scene and like they find little bits of reality that make it work, but the premise itself starts to get a little like they're one-upping themselves a little or escalating like a little too much with each one. Especially with the breakneck pace here, because they get to the next room that they get through the thing. The water starts rising again. They go through the ceiling. They shut this airtight thing so that the water can't continue to rise past their feet. And then they're stuck in this room that looks like there's no way out. But the Josh Lucas boatman
it's my favorite
knows
TV show.
How to it comes on right after Boat Cop. He knows that, like, if we flood this room, that thing is going to open and we'll all go through it.
They're the ballast tanks for the ship. So they're
ballast.
designed to fill with water to help the boat balance.
Truman,
And
did you
can
get some hosting from captains of ships when you were a child? Did you survive any disaster?
Listen. After my dad died, my mom married a handsome professional gambler who helped us escape from the Poseidon. I stood with him in front of a locked door and asked him what we were thinking about, and it was very charming, and I felt very seen.
Well, there you go.
This tracks your personality. Now I know why you're so charming.
And Dickensian.
I have to say, real quick sidebar as a writer
Yeah.
about character development. Around this time is when she goes, "Dad, we're engaged!" suddenly.
Oh, yeah.
And shows her ring.
Yeah.
And Dad's like, "What?" So first of all, it makes her unlikable that she didn't tell him.
Yeah.
Him, the fiance, unlikable that he didn't ask permission because, like, traditionally.
Yeah.
Third of all, like, why didn't she tell her dad they're on a cruise ship? Why is it just now coming up and she's had a ring on this whole time? He never noticed? They're all unlikable again. Like, she's been wearing a ring, and she goes, "Dad," and shows it to the
I think
camera.
she had the ring, but like she wasn't wearing it. I think she shows it to him to prove a
That's
point
right.
at some
She
point.
shows
I mean,
it.
I'm not trying to defend Mayor Kurt Russell, who is definitely a dick.
Not at
but,
all.
Yeah.
That's right. She does show it to him, but, like, why was she holding it? Why didn't she tell him before the, like, waiting to, like, we're about
And
to
it's
seriously
okay if
die.
we sleep together now.
Yes.
See?
I'm engaged.
See, Dad?
Yeah.
Like, it's so, it happens right before this next moment, so I wanted
Yeah.
to point it out because it happens so late in the movie.
Yeah.
It should have been at the start. It should have been at the opening scene. Like,
Yeah.
Dad, why we're on the ship is because we're engaged.
That-
It would have been a great opening scene.
That is
for them.
what he wasn't worried about them having sex when he walked in. He was worried about them getting married. He's all for premarital sex. He's like, God, if you had
Right.
come in here and I had caught you with some BDSM stuff, like, we're
For
good.
the love of God, do not become wed.
Yeah.
But this is where they force in that wedding story. It was right before the next scene
Yeah.
of the flooding. It was like, now you're telling me you're engaged? You don't want to tell him right the second that wave hit, or before when you got on the ship.
They're
The opening night of the.
like Kurt Russell and the boyfriend are literally discussing the engagement while they are climbing through the vents with water chasing them, and I'm like, guys,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is not the
So I
time
was
or the
thinking
place.
bunting could be aquamarine.
So you're gonna be good to her? Can I do a speech at the wedding? I have a great poem. I was read at my father's. Like, what are we doing? Seriously.
I like how all the characters you do are kind of like New York Jewish people, basically
That's-
the two characters from the original Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah. Oi! The ship is sinking. Gewalt.
All they
Save the-
wanted to do was get to Israel and see their grandchildren, and they couldn't do that.
They couldn't do it. One
Well,
of them maybe
There
got
goes
to.
the matzah.
Yeah.
They wanted to go to Greece, and or they were coming from Greece on their way. I can't remember the original. Pardon me. They were headed to Greece,
No.
and then Israel.
Oh, the
Yeah,
original, yeah.
And they were testing their faith.
Yes.
That's right.
Everyone. Okay. never mind.
They were going over their heritage in the original.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen their grandson for the first time. It really would have been a lovely trip if the Poseidon Adventure hadn't ruined the whole thing.
Mazel tov and hoopa.
We don't get, like, I mean, Richard Dreyfuss is kind of the, I don't know, oldest one here, but, like, we don't even get the original, like, I could picture my grandparents in that role and just being like, oh, they traveled from Florida to Michigan to see me all the time. Like, what if they had found themselves in a situation, I don't know, that was very effective. I missed it here. Like, I'm covering ground we've already covered, but, the things we do get of these characters revealing stuff at the last minute, it does feel like and I wonder with, like, reshoots, or if they did any reshoots of, like, we cut all of that stuff out narratively in order to have some breathing room or to understand why these characters are doing, like, the marriage thing becomes important for the sacrifice of Kurt Russell in a few scenes here, and we'll just go to it now. That I don't fully understand what Kurt Russell has to do. He, like, something is underwater. He has to go and press a button that says port on it.
He has to get a dessert wine,
propellers.
and that's the button you push.
He has to Bruce Willis and Armageddon.
$5,000.
Yeah, they told him just Bruce Willis Armageddon this scene.
Yes.
They're like, got it. Just Bruce Willis Armageddon, whatever you got to do. But I think the idea is to go in and stop the engines. But when he got there, the engine was like, like, and it was like WB cartoon, like with a spring. It had a spring. Do you remember that? Like
the button is popped right off because they
yeah. He's like, oh no.
They've made it to, like, the underneath the propeller tubes, and, like, they just have to stop the propellers from going, and then they can get out. But yeah, he has to swim into this flooded room and push the button to turn them off. But he can't push the button.
But that's what I don't really get, because he pushes it and it doesn't stop them; it reverses them.
Reverses it. And this is also the scene where the guy is like, I'm a high school swimmer, and he's like, no, I'm a mayor and a firefighter, and they're all, like, fighting over who's gonna be hero. He's like, I'm gonna go because you love my daughter. I'm gonna go. So that's all a thing that was thrown out. Like, I'm a high school swimmer was, like, thrown out, right? So that scene?
Didn't
Goes down, shoing. He tries to kind of, like, fix it like we would an apartment, and then he just reverses it out of. But can we all say the rush of this movie's narrative? They rushed his death. Because I would have thought it'd be like, but he just goes like, and then, like, he's like, I choked on a peanut, and now that's it. Like, he dies so fast as a quick choke.
I felt that way the first time I watched it, and then the second time I watch it, like, I mean, yes, it's fast because it's the end of the movie, and, you know, we need to get people.
Gotta wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah. But there is just something, like, of him floating and convulsing in the water that was, like, eerily authentic.
It's, like, kind of intense.
Yeah.
What I missed was seeing the length of the trip, because we got that in what's the underwater movie with the
Abyss?
Breathe in the pink
The
fluid.
Abyss.
The Abyss.
The Abyss, thank you.
Yeah.
You could see, like, the length of time he has to swim before he goes, like,
Yeah.
so, like, I wanted to see him have to, like, swim. He got there really fast, and then it was like suddenly, like, I wanted to, because they said it's a really long swim, and he's like, I got this, I'm good, go, I love you, marry the kid. But, like, I wanted to see how long the swim was and him struggling a little bit. So when he got there, he was already out of air.
Yeah.
He seemed pretty in control of his devices, and suddenly was like, get! Like, just suddenly. It was like Grandpa. I was like, get! So I just want to see, like, a little bit more of, like, him really struggling and, like, fainting and trying to figure it out, and then passing out as he pushed a button. But instead it was just like, go!
He's basically, like, his lungs are basically filled with water, and then with his last dying act, he pushes the button to reverse the propellers. And it's like, I mean, it's good that all he had to push was one button to do that.
True.
And would he know that that's a good idea at that time? He's just randomly, because at that time I think he's randomly, I don't think he thought this was a good idea. I think he was just randomly like, I'm just going to push a random button because that's what's
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and this brings up
He doesn't
another.
know about boats.
This brings up another comparison to the original, where, like, when Gene Hackman sacrifices himself, there's like him against God. It's him and just a wheel that he has to turn, just this physical feat that one last thing he has to do in order to save these people. It's you know, man against nature, man against God. Just, like, you can feel the tangible nature of that. And by the end of this, where Josh Lucas, like, the propellers start going the opposite direction, it creates a suction. He's like, all we got to do is throw something in there to disrupt it. It'll explode, and we can escape. And they throw some sort of, you know, air canister in there. And, like, at that moment, I'm just like, none of this feels really tangible. It feels more like man versus movie than it feels man verse any kind of theme.
That should be the name of the podcast, dude. Oh man, missed that.
Man vs. Movie is a great podcast. Yeah, but them flooding the tanks, I turned to Joe. We had to pause. I was like, hang on. They're deliberately going to flood themselves and hope the doors open.
Yeah.
Every the amount of faith
but
that
babe,
takes.
he's a gambler. He's just gambling. He knows how to just put it all on the line.
And what I loved about the 72 version of them, we're going to get to the top and then just bang on the ceiling and have them cut us out.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Then we're going to try to go towards a propeller was another well, how would you even know there's a out
and they
from
set
the,
everything
how
up.
do you know
In the
that?
first one, they said, well, this is the thinnest part of the hull, so we have to get to that area. They set it all up, front-loaded the movie. Dabgummit.
Of course. Consarn it, that Poseidon's on an adventure.
Okay, hold on. Watch your language here.
Hey, Joe. I'm so sorry, guys. He's an old-timey Western prospector. I'm so sorry.
You're right. That's rated NC-17 in Gold Prospector terms.
The thing about the original Poseidon Adventure, though, that irks me is that they get up to the top of the thing and then it's like oh well, a good thing the rescue team just happened to be there at that time to let them out. I mean, it kind of is convenient that happens. Here, at least, for all of the contrivances and conveniences of this movie, they at least MacGyver their own way out of the thing. And I do like. You know, they've started this process of flooding the ballast tanks. They're able to get out of them, and then more ballast tanks are just flooding as they're doing their other stuff. So as they're getting out of the boat, enough of the ballast tanks have then flooded that the boat unflips itself and then sinks, which on a kind of the movie coming full circle right at the end, you gotta admit that's kind of cool that the Poseidon Adventure Poseidon Adventures itself. And then
but then
Titanic's.
It doesn't leave room for Beyond the Poseidon Adventure 2007.
They can do a The Abyss down to it. They can.
And I do love that the boyfriend goes back in and helps at the end and does his thing.
Yeah.
I also love the moment the girl's still
looking
for her dad.
Yeah.
She's still Dad.
Yeah.
That's so sweet as it's all happening, and then the boyfriend goes in and does his moment because at this point he has done nothing.
Yeah.
So finally he's does a little bit at the end.
Well, his leg was
Thank
crushed
goodness.
at the beginning, and that has
That's
impeded
true.
him kinda throughout
He
the
Not at all.
bounced back very quickly.
That's the thing. There were so many promises I'm an architect, I'm this, I'm that, and then never.
Yeah.
I'm a firefighter. I have a crushed leg. Nothing paid off. They just set it up in case they needed it, but they never came back to us. It's so weird.
Well, they set it up and came back to it. Then the studio was like, "We've decided this movie needs to be 87 minutes long," and that all got cut.
It was 2+ hours down to 95 minutes. So that's
and 10 minutes of it is credits. They're crediting all these
Yes.
visual effects.
That shocked me.
all Fergie.
Yeah.
Fergie. They paid for Fergie. They had to pay it off.
They have to use 2 whole Fergie solo tracks at the end while we're looking at all the VFX artists.
This one's all about her booty, but we have to use it.
I hate to backtrack for a second, but I have just a couple logistic questions that I never quite understand in some of these movies. There's this hallway scene that starts to flood, and they have to go under, and Josh Lucas is he's regretting someone having died along the way, and he's kind of has a crisis of faith moment and has to go and save someone else. Anyway, there's this moment he goes underwater, and there are live wires sparking underwater. I guess that's just it's well documented. I don't understand how money works on this show. I've asked Truman that 100 times. I guess I also don't fully understand how electricity works.
If you're hot, you don't get hurt.
And Josh Lucas.
That's why all electricians are total smoke shows. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if electricity's in water, it electrifies water. I've seen action movies. I know that's how people die.
That's how people die in this movie too.
Is there
in everyday life in Florida? We couldn't go outside of a hurricane because there might be a puddle 1,000 feet away with a wire in it. Yes, yeah.
But so does it have a range on it? If you're underwater with electrical, on the other side of the ship, is that gonna electrify you?
So again, as I said before, my knowledge of ship safety of life at sea, SOLAS, SOLAS, is the electricity would have been cut off immediately. immediately.
Oh, yeah,
because
okay,
that
there you go.
is a very real thing. It's the same way that they cut off gas lines and stuff during emergency. Like, they cut stuff off on purpose so they don't have forest fires and whatever during earthquakes.
Yeah,
so there would have been no electricity right away. But apparently the wave was such a surprise that no one could flip a switch at all. There was no GPS in 2006.
It was a ninja
coming.
wave. It came in at night wearing black, and no one saw it coming.
Exactly. Had a mask on. Yeah.
But it's impressive that any electricity is still running on the ship when it's upside down underwater and constantly exploding. Like, that is, I wish that our public utilities were that resilient here.
I know. Had it been pitch black and they had to rely on only flashlights, it would have really increased the cool factor. Like, we have to, like, glow sticks and stuff would have been really
Especially
cool.
if there were ghosts.
But they had full electricity most of the time.
I think there was I'm gonna flub this trivia, but I think there was something of a sequel idea to the original book that didn't actually get made, because there is a sequel that Beyond the Poseidon Adventure exists as a book, but it's a sequel to the original movie, not a novelization of Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. It's very confusing. But there was an idea at one point that was being kicked around that was something like that, and it stayed in production hell after the disaster films went kablooey, and ended up being produced as Sylvester Stallone's Daylight.
Oh, that's great.
Trapped under a collapsed tunnel.
That's amazing. Can I drop a Landen? Sorry, I keep calling it Landen as a Landen. Hey, Landen. Landen as a claustrophobic person. You'll appreciate this. Safety life at sea training, out to sea. The biggest risk we were told in a sinking is our sheets and blankets. Because they start to float.
Yeah.
They start to float
Get
and
trapped
become
underneath them.
a shroud. So we had to always do ship tuck and folds and close our rooms and lock them so that they would never become a floating hazard.
Yeah.
So apparently, like, one of the biggest risks of ship sinking is the water gets ships and the blankets and stuff start floating, and all the curtains and stuff and all the tablecloths become hazards. So there's very few tablecloths and cruise ships.
No one died by tablecloth in this movie.
Not one
Missed
tablecloth.
opportunity,
Yeah,
if
They
you ask me.
should have though,
Leaving money
because
on the
that
table.
it's like
Thanks.
waterboarding.
Yeah.
It's like a slow waterboard. Can you imagine just like coming up under like one of those?
They were doing lots of waterboarding in 2006.
That was in the
Yeah.
2005 movie. I keep saying that.
No, if they'd done waterboarding, the terrorists wouldn't have blown up the Poseidon in the 2005 one. It's a foolproof tactic.
Okay, sorry, I took us down that tangent. Are there any of these other obstacles we want to talk about? The explosions, Connor getting stuck underwater. Like, I don't even remember exactly how he gets separated, but he's like behind a cage at one point.
He's behind a cage in a flooding room, and his mom gets him. He's like, "How did you get in there?" And he's like, "I don't know."
They never say, and I want to go like, can you go like this? Like, is he around a corner? Like, it seems like she's around a corner. Like, it's like a kitten being stuck in a cage. You're like, just open the door. Like, it feels like she could go like this. Like, I don't know where he is or why.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those. I do appreciate those moments. I love the little moments of stuck. Like, those moments are like elevators flooding.
God,
They could have done an elevator
missed
flood that would have been amazing. Because you can imagine being stuck in elevator that floods would have been great.
Speaking of the elevator sequence, though, like, okay, the bottom is the top is the bottom. Like, we've established that here. That was the other thing I was going to say I like about the original is there's a more disorientation in that film about the up is down than this film.
And gravity doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, gravity doesn't make sense. That's a cool thing.
Where they have to go upstairs, but the stairs are above them, and they have to, like, slide their way up the ceiling, up the stairs. That was cool. Here, like, the elevator shaft sequence, there are spikes at the bottom of it, like perfectly aligned spikes, like an Indiana Jones pit, which those don't exist at the top of elevator shafts, do they?
Why would they even put them in?
I hope
it's
not.
like it's like
I don't know.
It's like the chompers in Galaxy Quest. Like, why would you put that in there?
They're trying to avoid a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory out for the roof thing.
Fair, fizzy lifting
Grandpa
drinks.
Joe was on Poseidon 1 in 1972. We're not seeing that again.
Safety spikes. Safety stalactites.
My overall thing is,
Yeah.
had they made the characters more likable at the start and slowed down in the narrative, this would have been a great film.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Sorry, Truman.
Yeah.
Because they did great.
It's the only
Fine, I guess I'm overruled. That's democracy.
Well, what's interesting is this is the only remake they did of those big disaster films. Although you could argue Final Destination 3 is a remake of Roller Coaster.
Roller Coaster was towards the end, too. That was like right before Airplane parody.
Yeah.
I love that Airplane came out and told us kids at the time, all of us were children or fetuses, that like that's the end. Like, and it stopped for 20 years, and then in 2000 it kind of started back up again. But Airplane came out where I went, okay, we're done with the parody. Okay, the parody made us all make fun of the disaster film, so it's done. And Airplane was so good it killed that genre for almost 20 years. Yeah, which is amazing. Not until Titanic did we all accept another disaster film. Well, or Twister and Titanic.
They were disguised as action films. I feel like it wasn't about the disaster. It was about the heroes, like Armageddon or Dante's Peak, Volcano, The Core. You know, it was all about the heroes gathering to stop something from happening, rather than like
that was almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah.
Early mid 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, mid-90s,
yeah. I totally didn't listen to like a whole minute of conversation because I was Googling for this.
New.
Wow, putting my shit in the street. I think they pseudo-remade Towering Inferno with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Skyscraper, so there's that. Anyway,
okay.
You know.
All right.
Yeah.
But isn't that...
If you have not seen Towering Inferno, please watch it. It's so great.
I will.
Isn't Skyscraper about an earthquake, though?
Oh
no, that's the other Rock movie called San Andreas.
Yes,
which might be a remake of the Earthquake.
Yes,
and original Earthquake. Watch original. Don't watch the made-for-TV version. It's where they add a whole airplane scene. The original made-for-movie version. There is an elevator crash scene that turns animated blood. It's the whole thing, but it's so scary. They really do make you feel trapped. Again, like trapped. It's great. It's really great.
It seems like in Skyscraper the issue is that terrorists have set the skyscraper on fire. So really it's more of a made-for-TV version of the Poseidon Adventure remake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Classic template.
/ 9/11.
This is just another side thought I had. Andre Braugher, why couldn't he be leading the pack here? Like, I'd follow that dude anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Yeah.
I'm just really glad that they just didn't have him do anything. I mean, he's just... You know, because he's not at all a talented or compelling
he hugs Fergie.
actor.
He comforts Fergie.
You know, thank goodness. You know, did they ever identify? I don't think they even called him the Purser, which was the original bad guy. Like the bad guy is like, this is in the original movie. It's like, this is just a hotel on the water. Everyone's gonna rescue us from the hotel on the water. Stay here.
I think they only got him for one day, babe. I think they could only afford one day, and they're like, "That's all we can afford. He's so great. We got one day with this guy.
He gets to hang out with Fergie for a day. Yeah. I want
to see him from The Mist going up against the Thomas J. Like, give me that underwater or on a upside down boat in the water. That's what I want to see.
Can I come back for The Mist? Can I come back for The Mist, please? Oh my
people
God.
Forget The Mist?
Have you already done The Mist? Can we talk about The Mist?
I don't know if it counts as forgotten because I feel like people are...
Oh my God.
The thing that hurts me about Andre Braugher in this movie, he's the captain of the ship. He's down there. After it's flipped, he's like trying to get everything organized and do his job and protect people, and Kurt Russell is trying to like go get his daughter and leave, and he's like, no, you can't leave, you need to stay here. And Kurt Russell's like, excuse me, you can't tell me what to do. And it's like, fucker, he's doing his job.
Trying to do his fucking job.
You were a fireman. You get it. He knows the ship. Why do you have to be a dick to this guy?
Listen, I have a total lack of theology or philosophy. Therefore, I run the show here, Mr. Ship Person.
And again, as a person who worked on a cruise ship, literally anyone in uniform has safety of life at sea rules. So literally, when I worked there, the captain and his crew could toss our rooms. They had like jail rules. Like they are jail rules. So like they would come in and toss our cell sometime. Like any captain or any crew member.
But babe,
like,
if I was on that ship
charge.
with you, I'm a loose cannon and a gambler. So I think really you gotta follow me. I mean, all those rules, and I'm a gambler, baby.
I had another like weird places my mind goes during this. This is also a New Year's Eve movie, and I was like, can you tell when it's New Year's Eve exactly, like when the ball drops when you are in international waters. And I did some research on this. Lauren, maybe you have some insight, but in international waters, time zone boundaries are 15 meridians apart, 15 degrees apart, except for the specific little window in which they're 7.5.
I knew
apart.
that. Everybody knows that.
Yada, yada, yada. Lots of technical stuff.
Duh.
It turns out, though, that when you're crossing time zones in international waters, the captain has the ability to change the ship's clocks when he wants to.
He can control time and space, or she.
Yeah. They are
He's a
all-knowing,
Time Lord.
all-powerful. He's a Gandalf of the sea.
That's a good name for a boat. Gandalf of the Seas.
It's true. Because if they're like, I'm from Norway, I want to make Norway time the thing. But generally it goes to whatever the, because we're on military time all the time on the cruise ship. So we're like, it's 2,600 hours. So we're always doing military time. They generally follow military time. And as we cross time zones, they're doing military time. But they'll just often declare like where the ship was registered as the time.
Wow.
Yeah, weird. So, I mean, it seems like you'd never be late for your own party because you're just like, well, I'm going to change when that.
Yeah.
The ball drops when I say it drops.
Exactly.
It's going to stay
You are the
2006
powerful
forever.
one.
I never want to leave. Fergie will always be relevant because it's never going to be New Year's.
So then, lastly, they escape through these propellers. The 6 of them left, and they what didn't exist in the original were these life rafts. They go under with the ship. There's a conversation about them saying they're probably at the bottom of the sea. But as the ship is being crashed by the wave, you see the life rafts bounce up onto the surface. Kind of an interesting touch.
So conveniently
It's
so.
very nice of the
Close to
wave to
propellers.
leave those
Yeah.
alone. And for the currents to not take them away.
Right by the propellers where they were.
Yeah. So they are able to escape the propellers and swim out to a life raft that also still has a flare on it.
Thanks, Dylan.
And they're able to shoot the flare into the sky. And in one of the most I could see the screenplay words moment, the flare lingers in the air, and then it slowly transitions into the searchlights of a helicopter searching the surface of the water for the lone survivors.
How dare you be critical of screenwriters and screenwriting right now?
How
The
dare
sacred
you.
craft.
I have to say, my most critical part was after, again, taking safety, life, and sea training, swimming from a sinking boat to a life raft in the ocean in choppy waters, and getting into that boat is impossible. Like, just try to picture how you feel getting out of a pool without a step stair. Like, if you just had to get yourself out of a pool, if you didn't have a ladder or a stair, just getting out of a pool with our 40-year-old weight, it's tough. A floating, mushy, choppy, cold sea with a sinking boat behind you and all the night you've been through? Nope.
I think Mythbusters did episodes on literally everything that happens in this movie.
Yes.
So Mythbusters did all this work to prove the thing that Richard Dreyfuss tells us at the beginning, which is that an upside-down boat is going to sink. Cool.
Yes. All right. Is there anything else from the story that we want to cover? Truman, looks like you got something.
Just one thing. At the end of the movie, helicopters come over. We pull back up and away from the raft. I think the funniest thing in the world would have been if we pulled up and away and saw that dry land was 500 feet away. Like they were just in Long Beach the entire time.
They were still in port.
Yeah,
they were still in port. They never left. It was a river cruise.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a river cruise the whole time.
Yeah, it was a riverboat casino. Yeah, the reason no one came is they didn't give a shit. That boat's full of assholes. You put the
it was a Long Beach river cruise. They never left the port.
Truman, you recently outed me for liking the film Jerry, and that is literally what happens in the movie Jerry.
Yes.
Honestly, though, there are 2 helicopters who do the beams
Yes.
together, which is like, really? There's 2 they
And
could
there's
just
another
have
ship.
Again,
Yeah, there's one random boat.
There's another ship. Like, you guys could have been there hours. The second, the way, again, that's where it's 2006. The GPS thing is the whole thing is way off. Like, there'd have been a boat immediately. They'd have abandoned everybody. Before the whole thing even tipped, they would have been there. But I love the two beams. Like, there they are. Like, one beam didn't do it. It's it's a red boat with a,
heaven forbid you look for other survivors.
You guys, it's Dylan. We gotta get Dylan. There he is. Hey, bro, we got you.
He's so hot.
Out of thousands of people, just 4.
Oh God.
So good.
Well, this is usually where we speculate as to why this film was forgotten. It came, it went, it sunk, and no one has gone to scavenge its parts yet. Why do you think that was? Do we all have any thoughts on that?
I throw it to Joe Roche.
Nothing was set up and paid off. It was a lot of noise. It was a lot of running around. There were some nice moments of suspense here and there, but there was no core to the movie. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think all the actors and the director and the writers, I thought everybody did a fine job, but it has that sense that any humanity, any setup at the beginning that would have paid off throughout the movie was just taken out. So these people, you really got to have that theme. I mean, the original movie, I'm diatribing a little bit. The original movie was so great because it was an existential reflection. It was this guy, Gene Hackman's character, the Reverend Buzz, saying, "Oh my God, look, it's not just about prayers. It's about taking action. God rewards people who really care and take action and look out for their fellow men." And then he chucked it all at the end. I mean, he really had his faith just crushed. So he sacrificed himself, like almost as if to say, "Hey God, if you're not going to do it, then I'll do it." I mean, it was some heavy, dark stuff, and the audience was aware of that as it transpired. This movie, it was almost as if to say, "Hey, does everybody in the audience want to sleep with the protagonist? No? Well, then look at that. Look, he swam up that portal. You want to sleep with him now? No? Check that out. Guy's got balance. He made decisions. Don't want to sleep with him yet? No? Check that out. He's a gambler. He's got money. Oh, and he knows everything about the ship because he's in the Navy. Don't want to sleep." And so that's my diatribe. Pardon me. Yeah.
This is just Josh Lucas's Hinge profile.
Josh Lucas is going to come after all of us after this podcast.
His character. Sorry.
You guys, he can swim. He was in the high school swim team
with a hose.
Josh Lucas was great.
Oh,
Dylan,
gosh.
that's it.
So for me, I have to say exactly what Joe was saying in a quick, girly way, is that like every movie you love, think of every movie you've ever loved. You loved the person who was the lead because you knew them, you cared about them before they went through their journey. Mm-hmm. This missed that time to meet them. We just missed the time to meet and fall in love with the heroes. All I needed was a few minutes with Dorothy before she went in the tornado. I just needed a few minutes with Marty McFly before he got taken into the time-space continuum. I needed those moments to fall in love with their want and who they are and why it matters. No one mattered because we didn't get to know why they mattered until they're kind of into it and they kind of threw it in a little bit. So like, let us have some time to fall in love with your characters before we throw them through the loop, just like real life relationships. And that's where writing is important, and editing and producing and clipping stuff can come into danger.
Side note, Wizard of Oz, the first disaster film?
Oh.
I think so. Well, there was many actually before that, but I think that, because there was like Ben-Hur and all that stuff. But I think I think that Wizard of Oz was the first hero's journey clearly on film that we can follow without a doubt.
I think the first disaster film was that one where all those people thought a train was coming right into the theater to run them over.
Right. They ran.
Still haunted by the soundtrack.
Yeah. Grandma died by fake train. Yeah.
Truman?
I agree with even though I am the lone defender of this film, I agree it would have benefited if we had been able to sink our teeth more into these characters, and probably it would have more of a shelf life if there were characters in here we could really, empathize with. I think on a more practical level, why it was forgotten is that if you just look at this particular era of disaster films, you have The Core, came out in 2003, Day After Tomorrow, 2004, and then a couple years after this, 2012. And then leading up to this, a couple years before this, Armageddon, Deep Impact, Volcano. All the disaster movies they were making at this point were about existential threats to all life on Earth, or like an entire city getting wiped out. And this is basically a movie about one upside-down boat in the middle of the ocean. And even though there's lots of impressive destruction happening in this, it's just you put this up against a movie where it's like, we have to go to the Earth's core or else the Earth is gonna explode. I think it just somehow feels lower stakes compared to other movies of the genre that were getting made at this time. So I think it just kind of got blown out of the water, if you will.
You know what? I actually read the Poseidon Adventure book during Halloween, and I was reading a lot of Lovecraft as well, and watching a lot of Lovecraftian movies. And there was a part of my brain that was like, well, what if the wave was caused by the awakening of Cthulhu?
Cthulhu? Yes! Cthulhu's stirring the seas. He's like, F your thing. Especially whenever you challenge, like, I'm bigger than anything the sea is.
Yeah.
Yeah. One tentacle. Just one tentacle. Just one tentacle is all we needed.
It wouldn't be hard to add it at the beginning of this movie. Behind the wave. Just boop. Just knock it over.
Call Cthulhu, baby.
Wait, did you see that? The binoculars. Oh, God.
Did you? It's
the reflection of the tentacle in the.
Should we tell them?
Look over there. It's
No.
something unspeakable, indescribable horror.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna reiterate what everyone said. I think this film does away with the nuances that makes the original so compelling. There's no time to mourn either. I think that's another big part. Yes, Joe and Lauren had talked about the setup of all those characters, but what feels like it's missing is the culmination of that, is like feeling what happened, the stakes when every character dies. Even Roddy McDowell in the first one, it's like I feel the missing nature of like, oh shit, they're in more peril now because they don't have someone to help guide them. And that is just missing from this film. And Truman, you do a lot of escape rooms, so
Yes.
He's in one right now.
This film feels like you're being stuck in an escape room with someone who just wants to get through it as fast as possible, as opposed to like immersing themselves in the experience.
Well, I mean, the point of an escape room is to get out as fast as possible. There is a timer running. It's a literal ticking clock.
Well, okay,
if you
fair.
did more escape rooms, you'd understand this.
That's fair. But you can get into the spirit of it, and this one just feels like, let's just, rush ourselves to the end. Like, someone who's been in the escape room before, and it's like, oh, I know where the answer is, and just grabbing it off the wall and putting the code into the safe to get the final idol or whatever the fuck theme you're in.
Yeah. If you're doing the escape room with someone who did the escape room earlier that day, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so then now this brings us to our verdict. Should we send this back to modern memory from 2006 to 2025, or should we leave this forgotten, floating out here in the space of 2006? Let's give our guess for salvo.
This is tough. As we watched this, I kept being like, this is great, this is classic, but also it feels like the movies that we make.
This is an asylum
like,
movie. It's very much an asylum movie.
It's an asylum movie. It's half the budget. With our 2024 brains, with the technology we have now, where kids can make these on their phones.
Yeah.
Like, kids can make a disaster film on their phones with TikTok. So, so it's tough because they rushed so much. I think we can do it again better with more narrative and better time. So I say forget this one, do another with a little kid with an iPhone, and take your time with the
Cthulhu.
characters.
I mean, the kid didn't have an iPhone in this, but he did have a PSP that got knocked out of his hands.
I mean, the kid filming this, because like the technology now, they can do this disaster
That
on.
was a reliable
TikTok.
phone at the time.
Joe, what do you say?
I agree, and I spoke with. I was telling one of our VFX supervisors at the asylum about this podcast today. A gentleman who has a very storied He has an amazing resume. His name is Glenn Campbell. And Glenn said something. I wish I had taken credit.
Amazing.
I wish I could take credit for this insight, but he said,
Joe, can you give Glenn Campbell quick shout-outs of what he's done?
He has, oh my God. The list is unending.
I feel like I just watched something with him in it. Or
Blade Runner,
He
Dune.
had done
Yeah.
Blade Runner, Tron, Dune, I believe, multiple Star Treks.
So an amateur is what you're
Battlestar
saying.
Galactica.
No experience.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's a real hack. I mean, this is a guy with like hand puppets. It's really sad.
And he's a gem. Like, he's a gem of a human. Like, lucky to know him.
I always say, because I love the VFX department at Asylum, who are unsung heroes, by the way. They get
Planet Dune looked amazing.
They do these things in insane record time, and then people will review it and be like, "Oh, the special effects were so cheesy." But what they don't realize is these are professionals doing this in like 6 days. I mean, they're just cranking it out.
6 days, 2 locations.
I was so impressed by the effects in Meth Gator.
Oh, excellent! Thank you. I'm saying thank you like I did it, but I'm so happy to hear you mention that. They cranked that out and had multiple other VFX people making that gator gallop like a horse because they had to, because they had 5 seconds. All of that to say,
I like when he climbed.
He said, you know what we should do? We should take crappy movies from back in the day and make them good, as opposed to taking masterpieces and trying to remake them. There was a movie in the 1950s that, which now, of course, the title escapes me, which is terrible timing, that is essentially what Avatar is based on. And Alien is based on.
Oh, yeah, it from The Terror from Outer Space.
Oh, of course, you. God bless the encyclopedically knowledgeable and gifted, where you take this movie that people will lampoon and make fun of, and you go, no, there's really something there. And if you remake those in a good way, like they did with Alien and Aliens 2, then I really feel like, in my humble opinion, the studios are really going to thrive. And taking the Poseidon Adventure and going, no, we're going to make it extra Poseidon Adventure with whipped cream on top. And like, guys, just leave it alone.
And the top becomes the bottom.
And the top is the bottom. The whipped cream's on the bottom of the sundae. What do you think of that?
It's an upside down cake.
Any hoozle.
Truman?
I think we should remember this movie. Sorry, everybody. I think that it's not a great film, but I think it has a lot of really just effective and exciting and thrilling set pieces. It is directed in a really interesting, competent and interesting way. Seeing so many practical effects used in this combined with really top-tier visual effects for the time period. And also a big blockbuster movie that's like less than 90 minutes long. Let's encourage that
when
energy.
you get that.
Let's manifest that, you know?
I'm not angry at that decision at all. This is a fast-paced movie. Like, I think my vote is to leave it forgotten. But like, if you were to do, like, maybe Wolfgang Petersen's the only person that, if you were going to go through like their discography, their filmography, and like, I would still be excited to come across this one in his body of work. I don't know about like Richard Dreyfuss or Kurt Russell. Like, if you're going through their films, like you could probably skip over this bullet point, but you could do a lot worse. I don't know. I find it kind of fun, but the original still holds up so well in my estimation that like you can, in terms of effects, in terms of the story, in terms of everything we've discussed, that you could just go watch that and have a more satisfying experience and not feel like you've missed anything by updating it to 2006 standards. So that's my verdict.
Well,
Here we are.
The nays have it, I guess. Sorry,
Landon.
Poseidon.
You gotta get in the airlock.
I have to go with it?
I feel like I'm gonna say I think we're like a 2.5 because I love it and hate it at the same time. So I think I'm kind of like bifurcated between the two.
Ooh.
So we might be a split vote.
Oh.
Because I honestly still loved to watch it,
Okay.
and I still love the genre, and I love the story so much, and I loved the moments of terror. So I kind of
Don't split the vote.
Okay.
Don't
Yeah,
split the vote.
and watch every movie for this show twice, and it's rare that I'm able to watch a movie 2 times and like not have the second time kind of feel like a slog. This one went just as fast as the first time. It was
Goes down smooth.
I felt that way about Poltergeist as well, but that film just like does not leave any residue on your brain.
No
when it
ectoplasm.
goes through.
I love Poltergeist. I love it.
Anyway, I think that brings us to the end. So let's talk a little bit, Lauren and Joe, about what you're doing. Your, as of this recording, most recent movie, Attack of Meth Gator, is available on some streaming services. I don't want to say what they are in case they change, but it is available
always
to
do.
rent. It can be had. Tell us a little bit about what's going on, if you want to talk about that, some other stuff you got coming up.
Joe?
Well, fortunately, it's on fine streaming services everywhere, so anyone can watch Meth Gator. The working title was Attack of the Meth Gator. It was supposed to come out in 2023, and then...
We wrote it at the end of 2022.
Wait, was
at
that?
Christmas, at his parents'
Oh,
house.
this is...
Yeah, and it was supposed to come out in 2023. So it's like 2 years behind. So.
Oh, that's got to be weird. Well, I guess it's kind of how you promote any film, is you're always like, oh, yeah, I filmed that like 2 years ago.
Yeah, we wrote it at December of 2022.
Mhm.
So anyone who's like, they're trying to copy Cocaine Bear, we hadn't seen Cocaine Bear
Wow.
yet. We hadn't seen any other Meth Gator ideas. We didn't know anything. We were just
No,
told
I-
about
yeah,
Meth
we-
Gator, and
this is-
pitched a bunch
we
of
were
ideas.
giving we were given our marching orders, so to speak, like, hey,
Yeah.
here's the movie we want to make, from David Latt, David Ramawi, Paul Bales, the executives at the asylum. They said, pitch us some Meth Gator movies, this is what we want.
And this is based off the headline that came out of Alabama that said, don't flush your meth because there's real meth gators. And I'm from Florida.
Yeah.
And it's really been a real problem with the waterways in Florida and Alabama and the whole like redneck Riviera has become influenced by meth because there's really meth in the water. So the idea that we originally had would be like a Shaun of the Dead, where like
We
all the gators had
wanted a
meth.
whole
Ah.
bunch of like little baby gators, full grown gators. All the gators have been affected.
That's the sequel.
Like Shaun of the Dead,
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead Gator movie. But
like
then they're
They
like, no,
brought
we
it to.
want
I mean,
Jaws
they
Gator.
basically told us to do Cocaine
Cocaine.
Bear
Okay.
meets Jaws. I mean, but with a gator.
Yeah.
But Cocaine Bear hadn't been finished. Like, so Cocaine Bear hadn't been written or finished, but we knew it was in writing.
Yeah.
So he said, look up the news article of what Cocaine Bear is, look up the news article of what Meth Gator is, and write a movie based on that. So
Mhm.
that's where we...
So it's truly like a Bug's Life Ants scenario. Two things just, it's the world wanted this to exist in this moment, and it takes two different forms of Cocaine Bear and Meth Gator.
Sometimes an idea is too
Well,
big for
and-
one film.
And for us, it was such a dream because we literally wrote it while we were literally in Florida in our aging, elding, dying parents' homes, which was amazing to be able to do that while we were in Florida. We would literally go to a bar that was like a Florida-based gator-themed bar.
Yeah.
And finish writing,
It just
which was
happened to
amazing.
be timed
Like, we
out
were living
very
in
well
Florida.
for us to do it. It was.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm from Florida. Like, I literally have best friends who became Gatorland Jumperoo show actors, and I poked a gator tail at my bus stop. Like, I grew up very thick in the Florida thick.
Shout out to Gatorland Zoo, everybody.
Woo woo. We tried to film there. I tried to give them our locations, but it's too rich for their blood. But we really were there during that time, so it was really fortuitous the timing for us being there. We literally wrapped on our writing in Florida at Christmas of 2022, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, as we've seen from your filmographies, you have, Joe, I look at like your writing credits and you have like 3 films released in 2023. Like, if Meth Gator was written and produced and filmed so long ago and is just now being released, like, I'm assuming you've been working on some stuff in the meantime. Like, what's that look like? What do we have to look forward to? I'm assuming you've got some, non-disclosures, but
Well, I think what's very strange about that time period, and you'll have to forgive me, and this is for both Lauren and I, we were basically grabbing onto every opportunity to
yeah,
kind of pay for trips back and forth to Florida to visit family and look in on sick relatives and stuff like that. And so that whole period for 2022, 2023 into this year was a blur. So there was this strange thing where someone would ask, "Hey, when is I can't think of the titles even. When is Doomsday Meteor coming out?" Which was one of our disaster films.
Right.
And I could honestly say,
Moon
I'd be
Crash.
like, "Oh wait, did we write that? Oh wait, I can't remember."
Exactly. People ask
Because
me,
we were
Is that
cranking
because
it
they
out.
changed the title, or? Oh.
we cranked them out. We wrote them in 6 days. Here's the order, babe. Just
I love that you have to look at your own IMDb.
I have to look at it's Battle for Pandora, Doomsday Meteor, Transmorphers, Attack of the Meth Gator, Continental Split, and now in production,
Jeez, I even
Snow White,
forgot about
the animated
those.
feature.
Hell yeah.
So we currently have in production Snow White, which is a children's animated feature by the same company that we're also both voiceovers.
Ooh,
Nice.
That we wrote.
Multi-hyphenates.
We wrote at the top of this year during the most chaotic time of my life. Personally, I was going through a lot of trauma, and we just were like, let's write an animated feature during all this grief. I was like, okay, let's do that. Okay, write it a Meth Gator. So from meth to a children's animated feature.
You're covering the full swath of the human experience.
Yeah.
It was such a strange time period. I mean, anyway, go ahead. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say because I'm trained in improv and sketch. Especially for Mad TV and what I do at improv, I have to learn genres quick, and I learn the beats of a story quick, and I know how to do quick beats and stories quick. Writing for Asylum is really boot camp writing. You are literally training to write in a boot camp scenario. You got 6 days. They're not pulling their punches in their notes. You got to go fast and furious, and you just get it out, and you have to be like, "Yes, sir. Okay, sir, ma'am," and just take their notes and go. And they're really good at what they know what they're doing.
They know
how to make a great
formula
product.
like nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know the Sharknado formula. They just want that, and they know it. But there's no time to have an ego. There's no time to question. You just got to go, which is such a great experience. So I felt like I got paid to be a better writer.
It's reminiscent of how Roger Corman kind of, was served as a mentor for so many great filmmakers.
And what strikes me too is like all of those filmmakers from the Corman School went on are talking. When they talk about it, I hear the same kind of reverence for the boot camp style that you're talking about here too.
Yeah, and when you're doing a mockbuster, you have to know the genre because you're mockbustering the actual genre of the actual film that you adore. That's great, and you're hoping to kind of parody it, but also you can't do the actual story. But you, just like all the like how Armageddon is literally Poseidon Adventure. It's the same movie, but on a planet versus a ship.
Right.
It's the same thing. So we'd be like, okay, so we're not doing Jaws, but we're doing that with a gator.
Yeah.
But it's the same beats, but we're not going to copy them because we can't. But you know the tropes you have to hit. So we say mockbuster. It's like we're not stealing their narrative. We're stealing the beats that people know in their hearts when they watch those movies.
And I feel like what I found with the Asylum films, like notoriously on one of the last seasons of Mystery Science Theater, Pacific Rim, I think it was.
Atlantic Rim.
They
Rim,
did that movie on
They
MSG.
did Atlantic Rim, yeah.
I'm so stoked. That makes me so happy. Yeah.
Yeah. But there seems to be, from like the earlier days of Asylum to now, a certain like sort of self-awareness. Like they're bringing in comedians like the two of you who have these improv backgrounds and are able to know what the movie is rather than it trying to trick someone into like making a fake rental or like a mistaken rental or something. Like they know how to squeeze the exact tone of fun out of the movie that they want. And I've the movies that I like, Meth Gator in particular, but Planet Dune, any number of them, Moon Crash, there's just like you want to have like a little glass of whiskey and just like have a good evening. Like they're unpretentious fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're really good.
You want to drink some rocket fuel moonshine?
Yay, thank you. I feel like there should be that thing where like what we should do is the writers should wink, the actors should play it really real.
Yeah.
And that's the joy, is like if we write like a little like ding ding ding, like get it, but the actors play it dead serious. That's where Sharknado became $1 million movie. Was they played it so real, but the writing was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it was so silly and directed goofy, but they played it serious. And that's what Airplane is.
Yeah.
Airplane did the same thing. They were like, we're doing a disaster film. Don't call me Shirley. Like, it's just, they said the lines like they were serious. So that's where I get mad whenever someone accuses me writing a joke. Is like, that's not my job.
There were
to
no
say it's a
jokes.
joke.
We didn't
that's
do
their job
jokes.
to deliver it.
Right.
No.
Right.
Like, it's my job to be like, the ship is going down and no one can survive underwater. Should be a funny joke. No one can survive underwater. It's been proven by science. Should be a funny joke that someone says seriously, and then it's the actor's job to sell it like it's a serious line.
Yeah.
And then the people at home drinking whiskey go, that's hilarious. Because we should be able to go like this to ourselves and tongue-in-cheek it. But I think when you take yourself too seriously, you lose that charm.
And to add to what you're saying, the actors that are in Planet Dune, I mean, and pick any one of those movies, these mockbusters that are tie-ins to, you know, the big movies produced by the studios. Actors in these movies are great.
Oh my gosh, Planet Dune. Oh my gosh, they are. Oh, we were in love. I was literally crying. Robot Apocalypse, Planet Dune, Meth Gator. I was literally crying watching.
Anna
this. They're acting so
Telfer,
hard. They're doing
Emily
such a good
Killian.
job.
I will go off on social media about our actors. All these people.
We'll edit all of them in.
Oh God, thank you.
They are. I'm not kidding. They are brilliant. They are so brilliant, and they take the dumbest lines
Anthony
we read or
Jensen.
have been edited to be dumb. Oh yeah, they make them so believable and so full of heart. where you're
Keith
like,
Wilbur.
right, the dumbest.
These
line.
guys are legit,
Yeah.
but they're selling. The better they are, the funnier the movie is. I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't cut you off too much. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. That's exactly what Airplane does, though. Like, Airplane plays it so straight,
Yeah.
which is what makes that movie so brilliant. They all play it like it's really a disaster film while they're saying ridiculous stuff. Like, what's a hospital? It's where sick patients go, but it's not important right now. Like, that's like the way they say all their lines is so serious, and that should be like, trust the writers and the actors to do that.
Yeah.
Like, with a great director, and that's what Anthony Ferrante does. That's why Sharknado was so brilliant. Anthony Ferrante made Sharknado so brilliant because he took these ridiculous scenario lines, took these ridiculous straight actors and made it work. There's a baby arm that comes out of a shark with a chainsaw and it works because they sell it to be real. Anthony Ferrante is a genius.
No,
Like,
he
seriously,
really
he is.
he
He's a
completely.
genius.
I have unending tomes of love to write to Anthony.
And the trust that people who establish the asylum have in him for that was amazing. Like, if they can tap into that, that's where their gold is. It's amazing.
Yeah, and there's just kind of a passion for filmmaking that translates across the screen. Like, you know, you feel the crunch for resources at times, but not the crunch for passion in making it. And I think that's partly what makes it so enjoyable. Is there anything else you would like to plug for, you know, what you got going on, performances? Can we catch you anywhere?
Well, again, I always got to brag about Joe, who's writing a movie in 6 days,
Yeah.
filming in 6 days, and producing in like 3 a month. Amazing with Asylum. I'm still working with Lorelli, the awesome improv team, and I have
Hell yeah.
a few commercials coming out and some great Keep Watching, Make Some Noise, and some fun TV shows online that's
yeah.
accessible to everyone, and a fun Super Bowl commercial coming out. And
I think
keep downloading Mad TV and Disney shows all you can.
I don't know.
Oh, I can do the Disney shows if you want to.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Imagination Movers. Imagination Movers, Jesse, Gamer's Guide to Anything, Stuck in the Middle, Sitting to the
Damn.
Max. So those are the 5 shows.
Heck yeah.
Oof.
You know what? That gave this episode more of an arc than most of the characters in Poseidon.
Boom! Wow. Bringing it back, remembering it to insult it one last time on the way out the door.
Just keep their head underwater.
All right, well then let's I guess transport these folks back to sunny California. You can catch Snow White in theaters and on streaming when it is released. Hopefully by the end of 2025, knowing how quickly Asylum works and puts the great content in front of us. So be on the lookout for Snow White. And Lauren, Joe, thank you so much for joining us
much.
today to talk Poseidon.
This was a blast.
We are huge fans. Thank you so much for having us. What a delight, and thank you. We love how much you love movies.
Absolutely.
Even if we want to forget some of them.
All right, well then, for our guests and for Truman Caps, I have been Landon Solano.
And for Landon Solano and our guests, I've been Truman Caps. We did not rehearse this, and I'm going on the fly.
We'll see you next
I'm
week.
Lauren Pritchard. I don't know. Bye.
Whoa!
Movie Memory Machine is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpodcast to keep the machine running. Theme song by Porky's Groove Machine. Rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. For more information on today's show, visit MovieMemoryMachine.com.